as a GP, you've got the whole human body. As a speciality, you then zoom in. Like for me, I was this GP, then I zoomed into the kidney, the ureter, the bladder, the urethra, the penis, the testicles, and
not
the prostate.
tentacles.
Not tentacles, the testicles. To get an erection is another like I'm saying, miracle.
Another miracle.
Yeah, because it's a combination of nerves, it's a combination of blood vessels, and it's a combination of muscles. Yeah.
Surely there are men walking around with a machine that's not working, and they hold it in.
You put cylinders in there, and when you want your erection, you call the erection.
So there are people walking around with that.
There's people walking around with that are already at request.
No, we're making fun of it, but that's what it is.
Ready at request. You don't have to go through the whole process of foreplay, man.
No.
It's like, is it time? Yes, it's time. Then
let me pump.
So normally stones start in the kidney, and then they will then, like the urine, they will then be passed through the ureter. So you can already get stones that start here and stay there, or you can get stones that then get passed into the ureters, or then they can end up in the bladder or in the urethra. So that's what I'm saying. This is where the buck stops. Once these are gone, we got a problem.
Even in people who have anal sex, there should still be a pinch.
There's always a little, not a strong pinch, but there is a resistance. It's not like you enter the anus with like no resistance. No, when there is no resistance, it's an alarm.
King David Studio Podcast.
So I'm gonna start with your life more than anything.
Morolo, so Morolo. And now I graduated as Papo, Dr. Papo.
Oh, but you became...
And then I changed my surname. We both of us felt it was important that we both use the same surname.
Why?
Professionally and family. For me, I know about the thing, holy doctor, you're not supposed to change your surname and all of that. That's not true. But I think it's not necessarily about the legality of it. I think people feel, your parents took you to school, blah, 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 blah. And so, they must keep the surname just as a symbol, Dr. Papo, because Baha Papo, Mr. Schooling and so that, and all of that. But now, I consulted my parents just for formality, and my mother was like, cool.
Did she have the very issues that you raised at all?
She understood it, and I didn't really bring it up. I just said, Mama, I would like to change my surname to Marolo. And she's like, fine, not an issue. So, but there's dynamics in that as well, because the truth is I was raised by a single mother. So my parents were divorced. So Papo is my paternal surname. And so maybe that may have factored in, but I don't know.
Yeah, it made it easier for her.
I must be honest, I never consulted my father's family. But my father's never raised the issue with the fact that, because he was there. My father's family was there when I graduated. They were part of my life.
Yes.
And so they were there when I graduated. And I never consulted them. The only person, because as I say, my mother was the person I was closest to. So I asked, and she had no issue with it. And Kamhel was the one who actually took whatever was needed certificate-wise.
And
went there and changed it. And then I was Dr. Morolo, yeah. And so from one day to... No.
How much time did you spend as Dr. Pap?
As an intern, I was Dr. Papo. As a comm server, I was Dr. Papo. And then somewhere in between my post-intern, the first year post-intern, I then became Dr. Morolo.
Hey.
And it happened like one day, Nikile Dr. Papo, and then Kausani, the things has changed. So then, it's not Dr. Morolo.
When they say Dr. Morolo, you don't react because you're waiting
when
for
they say Dr. Papo, you don't react because I'm now Dr. Morolo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, it was very easy for me. I didn't really need adjustment. I just
did it.
It did it. Yeah, it was like a smooth change for me. So it wasn't an issue at all.
You're a urologist, and let me acknowledge my audience because today we hang out with Dr. Is it Viola or Viola? You know what? I have a helper. Her name is exactly like yours, but I bet you're going to pronounce it differently. What is it?
I'm Viola.
I prefer Viola.
I prefer to be called Viola. I grew up being called Vio, which is short for Viola. But I was brought up being called Viola at school. we'll talk a little bit about that, I suppose, later on.
Yes.
And so where I went to school, they called me Viola. And so most people call me V who come from that part of my life. So I'm always able to distinguish, even when I forget, when somebody calls me V or Viola, I'm able to place them.
Yeah.
Or when somebody calls me Va or Vio or Viola, I'm able to also
Place that.
them.
Yeah. So she calls herself Viola. So it's Viola Morolo. And it's you took up medicine but decided to specialize and specialize with an area that a lot of people, I don't know how popular is it, but I wonder if it's popular amongst women doctors, this area of specialty of urology.
It isn't. First of all, the speciality of urology is one of the lesser common specialities. So there's I'd say about 200 to 300 urologists in South Africa.
What? Is that little?
Yeah, it's that little. I must just take we'll just check the stats.
Yes.
But there's that little. I've actually got it on my phone, so we'll just check that. It's that little. So, and I'm not talking about comprehensive male and female. So the speciality is not the common kind of specialities. And then your question is about this gender.
Yes.
Female urologists are very, very rare. Black female urologists are even more rarer.
Whoa.
To give you a bit of perspective, I graduated in 2020, 2 years ago, at the University of Pretoria. And I was the first female urologist to graduate at the University of Pretoria.
Oh, you're a first
Female.
black.
No, not black.
First black female.
No. First female urologist to graduate from University of Pretoria. So there hasn't been a white. She's just finished now. The counterpart female urologist, but it just shows you that we are still. Can you believe it? In 2020, University of Pretoria had their first female.
That doesn't even make sense.
Most people think that we're going through the milestone of first black. No. First female urologist at University of Pretoria. People think it's a medal. It's not. It's just a demonstration of how far we still are to go.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not, I don't say it with pride. I say it with just an FYI to say that we still have a long way to go. Yeah.
We were talking earlier about where your interest and how you got interested in urology particularly. But I'm interested in where you grew up before we go anywhere else. Because Kishoro Ngayana, right? Which township?
Ke goletse ko Soshanguve.
Okay.
I was born ko Soshanguve, ko the block F ko Soshanguve ko Tukafalala.
I know Soshanguve well. I know Galala, Falala, and Halala.
Yes, yeah. So I grew up.
I know the people who are called the G.
Yeah, okay. So Nake Hulio ko Tukafalala. The F is close by the G anyway. So then after that, then we moved to Mabopane with my mom. And then Mabopane was my grandmother's younger sister, who I actually regard as my grandmother as well, because by the way, this was like at grade, I was in grade 2. So, and I started school very, very early. I started school at the age of 3. So when I'm saying grade 3, I was still very young. So we went to Mabopane at that young age. And then I spent most of my life at Mabopane. And then we moved back to Soshanguve to go block L.
Okay. Yes. Go to yes. Exactly. Transfer or the other end, go to school. Go to university.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. TNT.
Well,
yeah. Yes. So but now it's called Tshwane University.
University of Technology.
It is TNT, TUT now. Then we moved to Soshanguve, and then I stayed in Soshanguve until I completed. Then, of course, I left when I went to varsity, and then I came back for a while. And most of my adult life when I got my children is in Centurion, Pretoria still.
So you're a Pretoria girl through and through.
I went to school in Pretoria, and so
you met a guy who Pitori.
I met a guy called Pretoria when I was visiting my cousin.
Yeah.
And then I went to varsity called Pretoria. I went first to Grahamstown. Initially before I did medicine, I thought I wanted to be a pharmacist.
Okay.
So I did pharmacy for 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And then I moved to, but then pharmacy wasn't working. During the holidays, I would go to a pharmacy to work. My father, my special father, is a pharmacist.
Okay.
So what inspired me to do pharmacy. And then my biological father is an engineer. My special father is a pharmacist.
Yeah.
Then that's what inspired me to do pharmacy. But then when I was working as a pharmacist during the holidays, I just realized that this is not what I want to do. It's very much like shopkeeper. What I was exposed to, I know that that's not the full spectrum.
You saw stock room.
And like abata this, and we pull it off from the shelf and give it to them.
Yeah.
And yet I was in pharmacy school and we were doing all these like pharmacology, all these like technically very difficult subjects.
But you're not seeing them in practice.
We're not seeing them in practice. And then I decided, you know what, this is not working. So then I decided, no, let me just change. So then I started medicine.
Yeah.
And to be honest, medicine is actually where I belonged. When I reflect back on my childhood, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. Like I said to you, then we moved to my Upanikudisi, with my grandmother. And I did a lot of like miniature medical things for my grandmother. I used to cut her toenails.
Yes.
I used to, check.
Scrub her.
Yes, if she's got a wound, I would take care of it.
Wow.
So I was born a nurturer. And so when I did medicine, it like fitted my personality and I loved it.
And urology? What drew you to that?
Yeah, I get asked that all the time.
Yeah.
And I haven't formulated a clever answer, but I'll just tell it like it is.
Yes, let's hear the simple version.
Yeah, so I did after my my medicine. I then did internship and ComServe, and then after ComServe, I then did occupational health.
Okay.
So I did a diploma in occupational health at the University of Pretoria, and then I spent.
What was the interest with that?
So there was a mentor for whatever reason. You know how life is. Somebody sees like when you're an enthusiastic kind of a medical student, and So the three of us, myself and two other friends of mine, were like coached or like they for some reason that we were.
Molded.
Molded. I like that word.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to use so we were molded and guided and towards that. And I ended up doing occupational health, which was very interesting. I enjoyed it a lot. And in the interim, I then got pregnant. So I had to stop for a year. Then I completed it. And then after that, I was doing a lot of here and there occupational health related.
What is occupational health? So everybody moves with us. What is occupational health in its discipline? What happens and how different is it from a GP? For example.
Yeah. So occupational health basically is the health that is related to the occupation. I mean, if I could put it simply. For example, occupational health practitioners will then be interested in what the risks and hazards are in a patient's in an employee or client's occupation.
Yeah.
Most occupational health practitioners are based in mines, that kind of environment where there's a lot of hazards and risks associated with that. And so an occupational health practitioner is to make sure that even though the employee is exposed to these risks, it has no health implications. So they monitor whatever the risks in that environment are associated with whatever diseases. And so they monitor that and make sure that the patient is still healthy, the employee is still healthy, even though they work in an environment that has got particular risks.
You completed that, but still didn't necessarily practice it.
No, I didn't. I did for a while, but haphazardly. So I used to do a lot of work in the mines in Middelburg and in Witbank. So so I did that a lot. And then I was then recruited, if I can put it that I then worked for a company called FPD, Foundation for Professional Development, where I was exposed to research.
Okay.
And then I worked for a company called Family Health International, FHI. They actually headhunted me, and so that's where my interest in, because I had also done a lot of HIV work. And so they wanted somebody to actually bring HIV into their work. So so then I did that. So there was a big gap between me, like 7 or so years between me doing my occupational health and actually going back and changing my direction to urology. And then now your question was, how did I end up doing urology?
Yes.
So then I was doing occupational health, and then I decided, you know what, I've had the clinical exposure of occupational health. I went and joined a fabulous organization which called Proactive Health Solutions, that wanted somebody with HIV
Whoa.
with occupational health, and incapacity leave. So they wanted somebody to project manage those three divisions.
Jeez.
And I was suitably,
What were the
person
chances?
because I had all those three work experiences, and now occupational health I was using from a management and a strategic level, not necessarily on clinical, as a clinician.
Yeah.
And so then I did that, and I started. The Proactive Health Solutions got the SAPS as their client, and at that time the SAPS had 180,000 employees. So my job was to make sure that in the areas of occupational health, incapacity leave, and
the police service.
the South African police
the
service.
entire service is an occupational hazard.
Well, yeah, they are exposed to a lot of hazards.
Yes.
Yeah, they are exposed to a lot of hazards.
Wow.
So then after that exposed me to a lot of things. How that I was able to start up like a whole client and grow with the client and start structures, because we had to start a lot of structures and all of that. I must acknowledge Dr. Fundi Lenyati for that, because he was the one who actually went and looked for me and found me and saw me suitable to actually do that, and I developed a lot of growth from that.
Yeah.
And then I left Proactive Health Solutions, and then I decided, you know what, I want to do my own thing in occupational health. So I was looking around for a place that I could run my own occupational health service.
Okay.
And
so you were still holding on to occupational health. I was still holding on to
it because I like the fact that it was corporate. I've always really liked the strategic and policy level of medicine.
Yeah.
So and then as I was looking for a place to run my practice, one of the options was a GP. So there was a GP practice. This gentleman was selling his practice, and it was in a nice place. It was next to factories. So I thought this is suitable.
Yeah.
But what came with that is his GP patients. I had to then inherit his patients.
Of course.
And they
were happy to come along.
They were happy to come because I was a doctor and I had my agenda of occupational health, but I was a GP. Ultimately, yeah. And then I was bombarded with a whole lot of urology patients. Then I was like, yes, see, this is not what
you signed up
for. This is for occupational health. I was doing hearing tests and lung tests and all of these things. And then I've had these patients that I had to now also help. And majority of them were urology. I was actually quite amazed at how much urology patients present to a GP practice, because prior to that, I've never been GP. After I finished, I never really had my own GP practice. So that was my exposure of GP work. So I was like, hell. And I mean, we don't do a lot of urology
at GP, at school.
Training,
at
training.
Yeah.
So we do 2 weeks in 4th year, 2 weeks in 5th year, and probably another 2 weeks in 6th year. And
so it's not extensive.
It's not extensive. It's just so that you have a vague idea, so that you can manage them and then refer them to the specialist.
Of course.
And so I just felt like I'm not doing my patients justice. It feels like I'm referring all of them. So I decided, let me go to Steve Biko, because it was closer. My occupational health practice was in Centurion.
Okay.
So I decided, let me go to Steve Biko and just see what's happening there. Maybe I can attend a few rounds.
Yeah.
I got there, and like I said, I don't have a clever story to this. There's a blur as to what happened between me phoning Steve Biko and being a urologist, because suddenly I was like, then the person on the phone tells me, no, listen, and it's her name is Danisila.
Yeah.
So I told her, listen, I'd like to come and attend ward rounds here because I want to know more about urology so I can help my patients. I'm a GP. And then she's like, yes. And like I'm saying, there's flickers of the information, because I just, then she said, no, we've actually got a post for urology. Medical officer.
Okay.
And then for some reason, I submitted my name. I think at that stage, I was thinking that I'm applying so I can come a few days for
walk
ward
around.
rounds.
Yes,
for ward rounds.
Because that was your request.
Yeah, that was my request. So I went and applied this thing. And then, of course, I actually never went for the ward run. I applied, and then they called me for an interview.
Yeah, but
I'm telling you, that's what I'm saying. I need to come up with a clever answer about this, because my occupational health practice was actually doing well. I had 3 clients, and I mean, for somebody like occupational health companies, normally are big, like
they're corporates, yes.
Big companies.
Yeah.
So I had 3 big clients.
That's good enough.
I was like happy. So then I went for the interview. By the way, when I went for the interview, I was pregnant.
Ooh.
With twins.
Oh boy.
So it looked like I was heavily pregnant.
Naturally.
And then I went for the interview and I remember thinking, because we'll park that because that's another interesting story if you'd like to know the details of that. And then, of course, I was appointed, after the interview.
But you didn't necessarily have the skill, did you?
Well, remember that in
the
training,
complete skill.
Remember what I'm saying? I was interviewed for an MO post in urology.
Oh, medical officer.
Medical officer.
Yeah.
So what happens is that when you go into a speciality, in essence, all they need from you is experience and somewhat some interest and a little bit of qualifications. I at that stage had no qualifications in urology, but I got the post. And the plan, normally what happens is initially you come in as a medical officer and then you become a registrar, and a registrar is the training process to become a urologist.
That's it.
And then
it forces you to do it.
Forces you. If it's like while you're a medical officer, you feel like this is where you'd like to stay. But to stay in a medical officer's post and not like it is very difficult because it's very demanding, even as a medical officer.
Yeah.
And so, then I got the post, joined the department, and it was very difficult in the beginning. Firstly, because my babies were 3 months old when I started, and I had this practice that I was hoping and somehow thinking that I would still be able to
That's
manage.
why I'm wondering, how did you keep it running?
I kept it running. I had a locum, and the locum was coming every now and then, and I had my occupational health clients that still wanted medicals, and then I realized this is not working, and
you're stretched,
I was stretched, and so then I sold my practice.
Oh.
And I need to somehow remember what happened to me, because completely I lost focus as it went from me wanting a little bit of information to me being a urologist without much to explain as to how it happened. Literally, I made a phone call.
And you went through the training and everything.
I went through the training. Then I became a medical officer. Then I became a registrar. And then I went through the whole registership.
Yes.
And then I became a urologist.
You are one of the 303. You're one of those that are registered.
Yeah, I'm one
with
of
the
those
medical
303.
with the
and
medical.
I'm the first female urologist at University of Pretoria.
Hey. Wow. It's such an interesting story. I like how you say, you wish you had a clever, more interesting route. I think it's interesting that it God's work, where you don't even remember how you ended up here. And there you were doing all this thing. And now that practice that was doing well, that consulting with companies that was doing well, it all had to stop.
Can I tell you, when you specialize, the registership journey is very demanding.
Yeah.
Like you have to be strong to go through that process. There were many times that I asked myself, am I supposed to do this? And I then had to reflect, how did urology not feature when I was training? And yes, I remember, then I started to remember, yes, I remember those 2 weeks that I was referring to. And then one story came to mind. When I was in high school, our teacher was teaching us we were learning about the parts of the body of animals. And
many
animals. And they had a diagram similar to this.
Yes.
And like, what is this? What is this? And my turn came. And my teacher, I think it was about plants at that time. And they said, what is this? And the answer was that it was tentacles. You see, I'm making that mistake again. It was tentacles. And instead of saying tentacles, I then said testicles.
Oh.
So you can imagine my teacher, my biology teacher. And I think we were in standard. So I think I was in standard 2 at that stage, which is grade 4.
Yes.
And I said testicles. My teacher's eyes, she was like completely horrified. She was like, what?
Why? How do you know that?
About testicles. When this is tentacles. Like, how do you switch those two around? So when I was specializing in urology, I remembered these stories. I'm like, maybe that was God trying to also remind me that, listen, from a long time ago, I told you about testicles. And
when you didn't have to know the word.
Yeah, very young age. And I do a lot of testicle examinations. So I suppose one always just realizes that there's a lot of hints in life, whether they are, you regard this as some frivolous story. But I mean, I think we get a lot of hints as to the direction, and you maybe missed it. Like I completely, it feels like it was by coincidence that I landed up in this field.
But when you reflect, you realize maybe not.
Maybe not.
Do you know what I like about this is that I truly believe in the concept of hints. How else would God influence our direction if they don't hint? They don't hint. And I always say, I remember when I talk to young people, I say that hint will be you watching something on TV and you're really interested, and everybody else around you doesn't even care for this thing that's happening on TV, but you are. And after that, you make a mental note to watch this thing again or to watch it, a different version of it. Now you want to, and those hints, we ignore them so much, because there's a lot of noise around us. And that noise says, ayabora, and you listen to the noise and you carry on and you end up in a career that you say, I'm so frustrated and unhappy. You don't realize those. And I also believe those hints don't stop. They continue to happen. Wow.
This story lifted me many times when I was struggling. Yeah. So that small little story about my teacher laughing when I said testicles reminded me, and it's insignificant, but can I tell you, it lifted me and told me that keep going. You are at the right place. You are in the right direction. Yeah. Keep going. So I agree with you 100%.
You say it that specializing, and you use terminologies that are familiar to your world to be a registrar, to be registered. That's essentially saying GP, and now you take a route, you take an off-ramp, and you spend your life in that off-ramp, which is specializing.
I think it's more like a zoom in.
Yes.
So as a GP, you've got the whole human body. As a speciality, you then zoom in. Like for me, I was this GP, then I zoomed into the kidney, the ureter, the bladder, the urethra, the penis, the testicles, and
not
the prostate.
Tentacles.
Not tentacles, the testicles,
Yes.
and the prostate.
Yeah.
So I went from an overview to a zoom in.
And that zoom in, you say the work that comes with it academically is horrifying. It's not, you go for it as 2 weeks and you're done. How many years of that?
It's
5 years.
Yeah. That tells you how much. And it's solid 5 years. It's not, most people who join and are registrars, they normally have, so you go through intermediates, primaries, intermediates, and finals to actually finish.
Sure.
And most people who join the department either have primaries or intermediates, and they just coming to finish off the job because it's difficult to get the post, by the way. It's very difficult.
Sure.
Like I said, there's a story behind me and the interview that I had coming into the department. And most of the people that were there had primaries, some had intermediates. So I had none of those.
And you still managed to convince. Yes.
So in the 5 years, I solidly had to study to make sure that I, first of all, do my primaries, do my intermediates, do my finals. Yeah. And so there was a time where literally I would sleep at 8 o'clock. My kids would come sleep at 8 o'clock, wake up at 12 and study from 12 to 4 so that I could then 4 o'clock have a 1 hour nyana nyap and then wake up and start my day.
Yeah.
So 4 hours solid.
Every day.
4 hours solid. That's the kind of demanding that I'm talking about.
Sure.
And for 3 years, I had that. So 4 hours solid. It actually continued beyond me finishing because my body was just so used to waking up at 12.
Yeah. So. Let's talk about this finding that you got when you were a GP of the need for urology, us as patients coming to you with all these urology related issues. How prevalent is that?
A lot. I'll start with one condition which is very common, erectile dysfunction.
Okay.
And I start with that because it's a little bit of an uncomfortable
subject
condition.
Yeah.
And I always like addressing the elephant in the room before we go to the nice topic. So erectile dysfunction is a big problem. And I mean, erectile dysfunction for some people starts at the age of 40. Erectile dysfunction is a reality for a majority of people. And unfortunately, it's one of those conditions that people don't actually present with. So commonly in my practice, I've got a questionnaire. So even if you're coming for example, a circumcision as an adult, or you coming for a vasectomy.
What is a vasectomy?
So vasectomy,
I could never be a doctor.
Yeah, vasectomy, VASECTOMY.
Yes.
Vasectomy. It is where it's a form of a contraception for males.
Okay. It's when you, got it. I just remembered what it is, but carry on.
So now back to this let's look at this diagram.
Yes.
You can see that I like teaching here. I come ready
with
my
with tools.
my tools. Okay. So the testes, that testicle, back to that testicle thing. The testes is an important part of a male reproductive organ. That's where the sperm is made.
Yeah.
And from there, it goes into the epididymis, which is on top of the testes. And then that sperm then gets transported and also develops in the vas deferens. And then the vas deferens comes and opens up here. This is the ejaculatory duct, and opens here. And then eventually you ejaculate it. Now that vas deferens that transports the sperm from the epididymis to here is what we actually separate. So in other words,
there's no transport.
we block. So the sperm will still be made and will still go to the epididymis, but then in transit to being ejaculated, there'll be a block. It will be a stop sign, and there'll be a separation. So the vas will be transected.
You're removing the bridge between the two. You're removing the connection.
We're removing a connection. So now we're
yeah.
cutting it, and then we're making it a dead end, and then obviously the other end also continues. So the tube is there. We just cut it, and then we separate it.
Can it be reconnected?
It can be, but we regard it as a permanent contraceptive method. So when you counsel a patient and they come for a vasectomy, they know in their heads that this is a permanent contraceptive method. But things change and circumstances change.
Medical science improves.
Medical science is improved, but it's nothing to rely on in regard to vasectomy reversals.
Yeah.
But then it is doctors. Our job is to make the impossible possible.
Pretty much.
Even if you've had a vasectomy and you're telling me, listen, I've got a new partner with my 5 children. I've got a new partner who wants a child. What can you do to help me? We will then go and see, can we connect these tubes that were disconnected a while ago? Can we get sperm from there? Because remember, the sperm is still being produced.
Absolutely.
Can we get sperm from there and maybe do an IVF? So the reversible that you're talking about, they have been attempted and there have been some success. But the point is, when it's done, it is regarded as a permanent contraceptive method.
Here's another question. The sensation that comes with ejaculation, does it go away? Because now the sperm gets reproduced, but there's no transfer. It doesn't end up anywhere.
Okay, lovely question. So the ejaculate, which is what you pass when you're going through an organism, is a combination of sperm, which is from the testes. Now with the transecting of the vas deferens, obviously now, the sperm will not be, will not.
It won't, yeah.
Then we've got here the seminal vesicles. The seminal vesicle actually produces the majority of your ejaculate. The majority of the ejaculate.
Yes.
And then we've got the prostate. The prostate also produces prostatic fluid, which also forms part of the ejaculate. So although you don't have sperm, you've got semen, which contains seminal vesicle fluid, and it also contains prostatic fluid. So and remember, ejaculation and the orgasm is actually a sensation when that when that fluid passes through your penis, and then it communicates with the brain, and then you get that sensation of an orgasm. So you will continue getting your orgasms
even
after the vasectomy, but the volume will be slightly reduced because now we don't have the testicular component of the mixture.
It's a miracle, though. So many different body parts contribute to that one moment of creating life.
Can I tell you, the human body is a miracle. I mean, this human body was created how many years ago?
Yes.
And we're still trying to figure things out now.
Every day.
At a molecular level, at a genetic level. So the human body, you talk about the intricacies of fertilization, the human body
as a whole
is like an amazing creation, like seriously amazing creation.
Wow. Okay, so the elephant in the room, you're saying it's a common problem, erectile dysfunction. What are some of the main reasons for it? What you found and what you've studied?
Yeah, lifestyle patterns contributes a lot. So metabolic syndrome, we call it metabolic syndrome, but in essence, it's a combination of conditions. high blood pressure, hypertension, high glucose, diabetes, for example, obesity, where your BMI is raised, or or you've got central obesity, so your waist circumference is elevated.
Mokaba in
simple words. And I mean, just as a reference point, because I think that discussions must also be useful, because to somebody who's listening, in a female, when you've got a waist circumference of more than 88, that is what we call significant, and it falls into the category of one of the parameters for metabolic syndrome. And then for males, it's 102 centimeters.
Okay.
So 88 centimeters for females and 102 for males. So if you can just go measure your waist and see whether you fall into that. So above that is worrisome. And then I mentioned hypertension, diabetes, and then cholesterol as well. So if you've got a high cholesterol, and you can see all of these things are lifestyle. Kind of, issues. Because remember now, erection, to get an erection is another, like I'm saying, miracle.
Another miracle.
Yeah, because it's a combination of nerves, it's a combination of blood vessels, and it's a combination of muscles. You get stimulated, like when you just watching, you can get stimulated.
That's it.
Smell, you can get stimulation. Touching, tasting, all of those then stimulate you. And so if your touching is not, like if your penis is not, sensation is not good, you may not, but you may just get stimulated by visual stimulation, taste, and all of that, all the senses. It's like a cascade of events that happen. Where then the smooth muscles then has to react to that stimulation. And here we're talking about smooth muscles in the vessels. And then they then have to dilate. So blood vessel has to flow into the penis and expand the penis. By the way, an erection is like just a overflow of blood.
It's an inflammation.
It's
temporary
blood coming in without an outlet. So
so it just says I have nowhere to go.
Yeah, and then so it's blood coming in a closed system, if I can put it there.
Yeah.
So it goes in, and then eventually it's firm, and then nowhere to go. That's how you get your erections. And so, so anything that affects the nervous system. So if, for example, your nerves have been affected, especially in the pelvic nerves have been affected, you'll struggle with erections. If you've got vascular problems, you'll struggle with erections. And
you can get that from injury as well.
Yes.
All of those things you mentioned.
From a back injury, you're sportsmen, they can get back injuries.
That affects
the pelvic nerves, and then you end up with erectile problems. You can have a back operation that gives you erectile problems. You can have normal, like now we're going to talk about prostate cancer. When we have the radical prostatectomy, which is a potentially curable procedure, we meddle with the nerves in the pelvis. And so you then actually also get erectile. That's actually one of the big complications of radical prostatectomy, which is one of the treatment for prostate cancer.
It's fixable? Once they've been...
The nerves, once they're damaged, hey? So then we have to find... But like I say, our function of a doctor is to find other ways to bring a solution. So if our treatment always starts from least invasive to most invasive. So first we start with, for example, with regard to erectile dysfunction, we try to see, is there any psychogenic component of your erectile dysfunction?
Which is least invasive.
Partner related,
yes.
Maybe you're having work stress related, or maybe...
Is that common?
Yeah, when you're having stress, sometimes your erectile function, your sexual function does get affected, I mean, remember, the body is made for a fight and flight. So when you're in fight mode, erections is not a priority.
No, not at all. It's actually the body's way of saying, you don't need that. You need this.
It is a priority in the sense that survival, fertilization of the human is but it does get affected. So when it can be stress, that can also, so there's various psychogenic causes for erectile dysfunctions. But now if you look at the organic, meaning nothing that's necessarily psychogenic, not partner, not circumstances and all of that.
Not work, not
work, then the organic causes is those, it comes from those three compartments that I spoke to you about. So whether it be that you've got metabolic syndrome that's now affecting your vessels, nervous system, and all smooth muscles, then it can be that lifestyle modification, smoking, because smoking affects your vascular system, cardiovascular system. Smoking is actually a risk for cardiovascular disease.
We thought it ends in the lungs.
No,
it goes everywhere.
Yeah, it does. It affects your vessels. And so
alcohol?
Alcohol as well. And so all of these lifestyle things are actually what causes erectile dysfunction. Unfortunately, with erectile dysfunction, sometimes even though we investigate, we may not pinpoint this is what's causing it. Because ideally in medicine, we want to pinpoint what the cause is so we can treat the cause, and ultimately whatever result of the cause then, rectifies. And sometimes with erectile dysfunction, we may not end up finding the cause, so we end up treating because we've excluded the possible causes. And so we can't find a cause, and so we start treating. And we start obviously with the, everything helps, from the conservative thing where you have sex therapy, your partner and yourself go for sex therapy. Then we go to the medication. I'm sure you've heard of Viagra. That's one of the treatments.
Yes.
And so we go.
Is it a solution? You found that normally you would stop there.
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah.
Most patients, respond to that. Obviously, the disadvantage is that now it's like it's not natural. You have to now take a pill for something to happen. But I mean, yes,
it's a solution.
It's a solution.
Yeah.
So then we go to the medication. If the medication doesn't work, then we have to go more invasive. Then sometimes we have to inject you with things to actually stimulate the erections. Yeah, these Coverject injections that we give to the patients. Then when injections don't work, we can actually surgically implant a prosthesis. That should have been another thing that I should have bought for you. So we've got cylinders that we put, because you're like, here, look at this diagram. The penis, like I said, it's small blood vessels that are in there. So there's 2 corpora cavernosum. So it's 2 cylinders. So when these, if you can see these blue parts, so we actually put cylinders. Like a proper cylinder, a balloon kind of a thing. A cylinder that's like long like this.
It's straight.
It's straight.
Yeah. Does
and then you inflate
move
it.
around? Oh.
So you inflate it. So what happens is that we implant these cylinders in the 2 sides, in the 2 corporas, and then and then we have an attachment here in the scrotum. That is the pump.
Yeah.
And then the reservoir of water, we put it here behind the pubic symphysis. This is the pubic symphysis.
So it pumps.
So that's where the water stays there when you don't need it. Then at the right time, when you and your lady or male, whatever the situation is, want to get
want to do the do
with each other,
yes.
Then you press the pump. The pump tells the water, listen, go from there to the cylinder. It brings the water into the cylinder. This thing goes from this position to an erect thing. Then you do your do. When the job is done, you pump it, you deflate it, then the water goes back to the reservoir. Fancy stuff.
Is that invasive?
It is invasive in the sense that it's a big operation. But can I tell you, this has got very good results.
Wow.
Both for the male and the partner. Obviously for the partner. But one would think that the male is not enjoying. No, even the male.
I was about to ask if it keeps the sensation close enough to reality. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
So that has actually got great results, and we do quite a few of those. I think that's one area that people are not aware of. We do a lot of penile, not a lot, but I mean enough.
Enough to...
People must know that it's an option. When your medication hasn't worked, when Coverject hasn't worked, there is ways that we can still implant an erection.
Artificially,
we can
so to
implant
speak.
a prosthesis. Similar to when you have a leg that's fallen off. We put a leg and it works. Similar to that. But now we hide it inside your penis. We put cylinders in there, and when you want your erection, you call the erection.
So there are people walking around with that.
There's people walking around with that are already at request.
No, we're making fun of it, but that's what it is.
Ready at request. You don't have to go through the whole process of foreplay, man.
No.
It's like, is it time? Yes, it's time. Then
let me pump.
Pump.
And I like how you introduced it as an elephant in the room, because we speak of it candidly. It's easy for us because we're not partners. It's not a problem we're dealing with. Do you find that it becomes a psychological problem also in relationships? It should be. It
is, and simply because sexual functioning is intricately involved and attached to a male's ego, if I can put it that way. Perhaps ego is a wrong word, but a male's identity is a better word.
I think ego simplifies the severity of how it affects you, because your ego is your standing in society, you're standing in your household, standing in your relationship.
That's it.
Yeah.
So when you aren't able to satisfy your partner, it's like such a setback in terms of how you play catch up. You can be this handsome, educated, like charming performing man, but when it comes to stuff that's between you and your intimate partner, you're unable to meet them where they need you to meet them. So that's what the issue is. And that's where it's difficult to actually come to a point of admitting that, listen, I cannot perform in the area that you want me to perform. And that's why it's the elephant in the room. And that's why partners fail to actually communicate. So, it actually makes them almost like defiant and actually angry a little bit. So I always tell patients when they come, I ask them, have you spoken to your partner about it? By the way, you don't necessarily have to speak to it because it's not a secret. If you're having problems with it, certainly your partner will know that, listen, because your partner is normally, you and your partner together, foreplay, and they can see that things are not working here or something. And so it's not a secret. So there's no point in hiding it because it's there.
You can't hide it.
Yeah, like the my MC at my wedding said, it's there in the pepnin, So I mean, imo pepnin, if you can put it that. So it's there. I mean, it's not a secret. It's not something that's a secret. You both can see that things are not, working like we want them to.
Yeah.
And so I always ask them, have you discussed it? Because yes, you may not have discussed it, but remember that if you haven't discussed it, doesn't mean that she hasn't noticed.
No.
So actually, you are both pretending, in fact, So most of them will say, well, we haven't really, or yes, we have. Some of them present with the wife, and the wife saying, I brought Munaga because things are not working. The husband or the partner is scared to present himself. So the woman is like, listen, it's for me now. It's for us, but it's for me, and so she brings the partner, well, she or he, whatever the relationship is, because I'm conscious of the fact that there's male and male partners as well. So the partner brings the other partner, and then that's when the discussion starts. And then when they come to me on their own, I always encourage them, go speak about it tonight. And also, you're welcome to bring your partner at the next visit. Then we can talk about it. Listen, this is like any other condition. And the benefit is we can help you.
There are solutions.
It's not like we talk about it and then nothing happens. We can actually help you. We can help you. We can get to the stage where we give you a prosthesis where solved problem.
Well, listening to you talk about this, it makes me realize, and it's similar to something I said earlier when I said, so there are men walking around with that pump thing. Yeah. Surely there are men walking around with a machine that's not working, and they hold it in, and it affects all their lives, because every aspect of your life gets affected by a dysfunctioning what's that, penis in that regard. Wow. No. So you part of your work is psychology, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, that's why I started by saying that we work with humans. Yeah, it's psychology. It's a lot about, it's delicate thing. And by the way, when you talk about something like this, like you say, we're laughing about it now, but if it's a real patient, it's not a laughing matter.
No.
And it's most of the time, it's something that has been coming for a long time, that they decided, you know what, things are going rough in the marriage. If I don't do something, it's like nearly terminal stages now,
It's taboo to talk about it. And I imagine there are marriages that collapsed because of it.
Yes.
And where we just didn't talk about it.
Yes.
And we just drifted apart.
Yes. And collapse also maybe in the sense that, because like I said, it's the erections is a big part of a male's ego, because you feel like you're not able to perform. You have this like devil that's behind you saying, my wife or my partner must be getting it from somewhere else.
Boy.
So any small little hint or sign or something, you already making your own
smells nicer
conclusion.
than normal.
Yes, she's looking nicer than normal. She's coming later than normal.
Yay.
So already that's like already at the back of your mind, because you've got this insecurity.
You have your own issue.
Yeah, you've got your own issue that you can't actually satisfy her in that manner. And so you in your head, somebody else must be doing it.
Oh boy.
Satisfy him or her, yeah.
So much work.
Yeah.
But surely, look, you're not necessarily a sexologist, but surely there are other ways of keeping the bedroom exciting, even when the machine is not working, or it doesn't just go back to it ultimately.
Yeah, there are other ways. But a friend of mine also once told me that, you know what, you can have the gadgets, but the gadget needs to have a body. So you can't just have a gadget that doesn't.
Yes.
The body needs to be there. So yes, I guess there is ways, but those things should augment, not replace.
Yeah.
So in other words, if you have some form of gadgets and things that are taking your sexual engagement with your partner to a certain level, it shouldn't be that you're relying on that.
No.
It's like an addition to the intimacy that you and your own body can have with each other. And then
It
you
should
add
be an
an
extra,
add-on.
not
It's an add-on,
not the main thing.
Yeah, it's the sprinkles on the cake.
It's not the cake.
It's not the cake.
Imagine if all you had was the sprinkles.
Yeah, then
you can't tell people you had a cake.
No.
Excuse the pun.
No, exactly.
Excuse the pun. Urology as a discipline, is it only a man? Because all we've done so far, I speak about the men sexual reproduction system. Is it just a men related discipline, or it goes both ways?
No, it isn't. Like I said to you, it's a zoom in. Remember when we started and I said when you're a
Yes.
GP, you're a generalist, and then you zoom in. So, and I mentioned that when you zoom in, it's the kidneys. So we've got the kidney there. We've got two. Everybody has got two kidneys. Then it's a diagrammatic thing. Then we've got the ureter. So the ureter is the tube that takes. Let me do it like this. And maybe let me do it properly like this. My drawings are not bad, eh?
No, not at all.
Okay. So we've got the kidney, and the kidney's job is to make urine. And urine takes all the stuff that the body wants to get rid of. And then the urine is then transported through the ureter. This is the ureter. And then it goes into the bladder. Okay. And then I'll do it like this. But in essence, it can be like this. Okay, because for females, the urethra is very short.
Yeah.
For males, the urethra is long. So this is the kidney, the ureter, the bladder, and the urethra. So for females, they've got a short urethra. This is the labia. And then for males, we've got the long urethra, and this is the glans, if you can picture. And then if it's a male, here you've got the prostate around the urethra underneath the bladder. And then if it's
for men and women, this
so
until
for
here,
yeah, exactly,
pretty similar.
exactly. Women have got kidneys, okay. Women have got ureters.
Of course.
Women have got bladders, and women have got urethra.
Then it starts getting...
Then males have then the prostate. This is now the prostate. This is now the testes.
That's man.
Yeah, this is one testis. So I'll write it with an I. That's the males. So this is male. This is male. This is male and female. This is male
And female.
and female. This is female and male. Similarly, female and male. Yeah. So everything up to here is
the same.
Yeah, is the
Then it
same.
changes
Yeah.
below
Then of
that
course, then from the urethra part, then we do so conditions in the kidney, females have to present to the urologist. Conditions in the ureter, females have to present to the urologist. Bladder problems, incontinence. A lot of females have incontinence. They feel like incontinence is a part of growing up. They feel like if you're leaking, and incontinence means leaking of urine. You know, they feel like as you become an adult, it's part of growing up. Then you know uhudila once you start leaking, and it's a bad thing. And so they come to me out like frustrated that I know I'm expected to tolerate this, but I can't. What do I do? And incontinence is not normal. We can treat you for that.
Let's talk about leaking.
Yeah.
What is that? And let me not pretend I know what it is. Is it after I've gone to the loo and there's still, I think I'm done and there's still some left?
Okay, so you're talking it from a male's perspective.
Yes,
Excellent.
yes.
So I'll talk about it from both sides. So we've got what we call lower urinary tract symptoms. And I like making it easy because, like I said to you, people must be able to take back and check and remember from this interview. So we've got symptoms that we call fun-wise.
Yeah.
Okay. F is frequency.
Okay.
U is urgency. And then N is nocturia, meaning when you urinate, you go to the toilet every now and then. This is the frequency part. Urgency means that when you feel like you need to go to the toilet, you can't stop that feeling. You need to go now. Otherwise, you're scared you're going to wet yourself.
That's it.
Nocturia is when you go to the toilet more than once at night. That's fun. Wires is a weak stream where before when you urinate, it used to go far away. Now when you urinate, it goes close by. The stream of the
it doesn't have
that oomph anymore.
Yes.
And then intermittency. Normally, when that happens, when you urinate, when you're flowing, it starts and stops and starts and stops and starts. It doesn't go all the way till the end.
So that happens as well.
That's symptoms. So this is not normal. All I'm talking about is not normal.
What is normal? Before let's describe the simplicity of
you should. Okay, so the bladder and the urethra work, and the external sphincter, the sphincter of the pelvic sphincter, are supposed to work so that your bladder stores urine. The urine that comes from the kidney to the ureter stores urine, and at the appropriate time, then it's supposed to void. Like now, we're storing the body. Like I'm saying, the body's continually storing, and then the bladder keeps telling the brain, "Listen, my bladder's getting full." The brain keeps telling the brain, the bladder, hang tight. They're busy with an interview here. That's what's happening to both of us. Our brain is telling the bladder they're having an interview. So you have to chill. You can't go to, you can't.
Not right now.
Not right now.
Yeah.
Until eventually, after the interview, then if you still have that feeling, then you can go. And the brain says, yeah, okay, fine. She's in the toilet or he's in the toilet. Go ahead and contract. So I'm trying to demonstrate that the function of the bladder is primarily to store. The bladder and the sphincter is to store, and at the appropriate time, then you must urinate. And storage, I say store, but it's a complex. The word is very packed because it must happen with the right pressure, with the right sensation, and all of that.
With the right quantity.
Yeah, so storage. Remember, storage is not a controlled thing. It will store whatever it's given.
True, of course.
So whatever urine the kidney makes and takes it to the bladder has to take that. But what the bladder has in control is the kind of pressure that builds up as it's storing that urine. And so that pressure must be low, because if it's high, then it's going to
go.
It puts back pressure and damages the kidney. People think that we are penis and what doctors. We are actually caretakers of the kidney. Our job is to make sure that everything is sorted out, because so that the kidney doesn't get damaged. So we are like the people running around making sure that nobody damages the kidneys.
Because ultimately the penis is an outlet.
Yeah,
open it, it goes.
The urethra in the penis.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But if you keep it, it affects the machine at the back, which is the kidney.
Yeah, that's it. Remember, the penis, you can live without a penis. Unfortunately, I did an interview about botched circumcision. So there's many children even who live without penises. It's a sad situation, but it's not life threatening. It's not. You can
exist without
a penis. But you can exist without a bladder, because there's patients who have bladder cancer, and then we have to remove the bladder and formulate another something. Yeah, formulate another something, and then where the urine is stored in the interim. We can make away with the ureters, but kidneys, you certainly can't live without both kidneys. If your one kidney is not functioning, you can live with one kidney. That's why people can donate their one kidneys. You know that, isn't
it? That's it, yes.
Yeah. But you certainly can't live without any kidney. If both your kidneys are not functioning, you have to go through dialysis and get a kidney transplant. So that's what I'm saying. This is where the buck stops. Once these are gone, we got a problem. So these things, we can survive without them. But then we can't survive without kidney, because otherwise all the toxins, like I was saying to you, that
because its job is to
remove all the toxins. Now you're going to be a person who just keeps all these toxins in your body. So we need to get rid of the toxins. So without the kidney, you're going to be a toxic bomb.
Essentially. And what happens to that? We don't know.
Yeah, no.
And now, while we're talking kidney stones, it's your world. What is that?
Kidney stones are stones. If you see a kidney stone, you'll realize that that's why it was called stone, because it's a stone. It's hard. And how it forms is, for example, there are particles and what we call solutes in the urine, in the kidney. Remember, the kidney is supposed to get rid of some of these things. So, for example, sodium is one of the things that the kidney is supposed to get balance. Salt, exactly. Yeah. So when those small little granules, casts, clump up, and then stay and are not excreted
system.
regularly, it then builds up and makes stones. So and so it all depends on how concentrated your urine is. So the more concentrated your urine is, the more that this process can put you at risk of getting stones. And then, of course, the duration that your urine is in the system, the collecting system. Because if you can imagine, if you've got a blockage and then you don't empty your urine properly, you're always going to have stasis. And stasis is an opportune moment for these things to climb up and make stones. When you have stones, it's a bad thing. You shouldn't. Stones are something that we should treat all the time. First of all, we should prevent it, like all conditions prevent, and then make sure that if you have them, we treat them, so that comprehensively, as in treating the current stone and making sure that we prevent you from getting future stones, because treatment doesn't just talk about the current problem. We want to solve, like I mentioned, the cause. Yeah. What caused the stones, so that we can also solve that problem.
How do you treat someone with stones? Do we open up, remove, close up, move on?
So normally stones start in the kidney, and then they will then, like the urine, they will then be passed through the ureter. So you can already get stones that start here and stay there, or you can get stones that then get passed into the ureters, or then they can end up in the bladder or in the urethra. Most commonly, stones are in the kidneys, in the pelvis, in the ureter. Very few stones are in the bladder, unless you've got a bladder outlet obstruction. So you were saying, how do we treat them? It depends. Are they in the kidney, in the ureter, in the bladder, in the urethra? So treatment, like I mentioned, treatment always starts with the least invasive to the most invasive. If it's stones that are soft, that can dissolve with chemolysis, there's medication that we give to dissolve the stones. If it's stones that are soft, but maybe chemolysis will not work, we have some system where we called as well extracorporeal soft wave lithotripsy, where we give some almost X-rays that breaks the stones down. And then otherwise, we then can go with scopes, and then we go, if it's in the bladder, then we break the stone up, or we put a scope through the ureter and we find that stone, we laser it. Or if it's in the collecting system in the pelvis, then we also break it down. So it all depends on where the stone is and how big it is. Sometimes if it's very big and it's in the kidney, we literally have to put a scope from outside, something like this, where we put a scope from the outside. This is now your skin on the outside, and then we look through there, the scope, and then we break this. Like if you have a stone here, then we break it from the outside because it's too big. If we went this way, it will take far too long to break that stone. So there's multiple ways of treating stones. Yeah, urology is a very broad spectrum, and that's why in every field, like in urology, there is super speciality. You can actually focus only on endoscopy, treating stones, for example, as part of your
So the people who do that.
There's people who focus only on stone management. There's people, my interest is uro-oncology.
What is that?
Cancer. So cancer in the urological cancer, which can be kidney cancer, ureter cancer, bladder cancer, urethral cancer, testicular cancer, prostatic cancer. So females, kidney cancer is a female condition that females need to come to urologist. There's no other specialty that can treat kidney cancer. It's not like you can, and then bladder, for example, as well. But my interest is uro-oncology, but I have a particular interest in prostate cancer simply because it is such a common cancer. It's actually the most commonly diagnosed cancer in males.
In the world?
In second most common in the world, but in South Africa, it is the most common cancer.
In South Africa. When I asked about the flow of urine, and I said normal. You said normal. Yes, you remember the normal.
Is when it flows nicely.
Yeah. And what is nicely? Is it good pressure?
Good pressure.
Yes.
First of all, it starts with when you can feel your bladder filling. Okay. Not that all the time you must be getting conscious that now my bladder is filling. It's basically most of us can feel when the bladder is full.
Pretty much, yeah.
So
you're not feeling the filling. You're feeling I'm full now.
The amount the bladder is full. Because by the way, there are people who have a full bladder and are not aware that the bladder is full.
Ooh, is that a dysfunction?
That's a dysfunction.
Okay.
So it starts there. So you should be able to feel when your bladder is full, and then you should be able to go and to go to the toilet at the appropriate time. We spoke about that. And then empty your bladder. So emptying your bladder means the flow needs to be good, must be not obstructed. There must be muscle that contracts. The bladder must be able to contract to empty the bladder. So you should be able to empty your bladder. From this full bladder, it must. And remember, when it's full, the whole point, like I mentioned to you, that it must be in a low pressure. So when it's filling, it must not be working against itself.
That's why there's pain.
It must be relaxed.
That's why there's pain if it's too full.
Yeah, when exactly. So then when it's full at the right time, then it contracts. That's when it's contracts, and it must empty. And as it contracts, the urethra and the sphincter must open. Because if this thing is closed and the bladder is contracting, it's like they're working against each other. Yeah. So it must contract. That's why can you see how like fascinating the human body is? So, and all of this, you don't even have to think about it. No. The body knows. It's like it's time. Autopilot. It's time to go to the toilet. The bladder will contract. The sphincter will open up, and then they will work together like that. And then when I'm done, the bladder will relax again, and then we'll start filling again. Yeah. And all of this is happening without, people read newspapers as they're reading. But when things are normal, in the toilet,
that's when things are normal.
But there are people where this is not normal.
Let's talk about one step back. There could be a problem with the muscles contracting. There could be a problem there. What type of problem do we talk about in that space?
So, for example, there could be a functional problem with the bladder where the bladder it's a flaccid bladder. It doesn't contract. The detrusor, the muscle of the bladder is called the detrusor. So that detrusor muscle doesn't contract enough for the bladder to empty. Yeah. Remember, it's a combination of the bladder contracting and the outlet opening up. So in some people, even though the detrusor is not that strong, the outlet opens up so that to some extent you're able to empty, even with not a completely strong detrusor.
Probably gravity helping.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going down. Let's just all go down.
So some people just opening the outlet. That's why females, because females have got a short urethra. Chances are that the flow is more increased because the urethra is shorter, and they only have to open up and then it flows.
It just goes out.
Whereas with the males, it's a long.
There's a pipe you're dealing with. Yeah.
Yes.
And now, what other challenges do we have as the blood? Now we're talking about getting rid of urine.
Yeah.
We are done with essentially with the bladder. What other problems happen after that? For male, you said you could have a problem, particularly with the pipe. What are the possible problems with urine? Remember, it started when I asked the question, I go to the toilet, I release, but I'm not done. I think I'm done. Because the bladder is saying to me, you're done. I put it back in my pants. I carry on with my life. And now there's something else there. It's not quite done. What is that? Is that it could be a function of the pipe?
Remember the drawing that we did? So the prostate is around, this is how it looks like.
Yeah.
It's basically, this is the urethra, the pipe that goes from the bladder out, and the prostate is around that.
It's around that.
So if the prostate is enlarged, you can imagine that it's going to squeeze this pipe. And so you're not going to be able to urinate nicely because now
there's pressure.
There's something that's pressuring, that's pushing it from outside. So that could be the problem as well. There's multiple. Urology is a very extensive, like you've seen. So there's multiple reasons. So when you've got problems with that fun wise that I was talking about, you need to literally go to your GP as a starting point, who will then refer you to the urologist so they can figure out, is it the bladder? Is it the urethra? Is it the outlet? What is it? Are you not maybe producing enough urine? Because it could be that the actual urine itself is not inadequate. And when you say you're having little urine, it's not because there's obstruction, it's because there's a kidney problem. Yeah. So when you have a problem, when things are not normal, you need to go so that they can investigate where's the problem. It could be, and it could be a combination of multiple things as well. Yeah, it could be multiple.
I want to get to prostate. What is it and what is its function?
Okay, so the prostate, it's a small organ that is underneath the bladder. So that's the bladder. It's immediately underneath the bladder. And obviously it's only found in males underneath the bladder, and it surrounds the urethra. The urethra, like in the diagram that I drew, is the pipe that joins the bladder to the outside that you use to urinate. So the prostate is around that urethra, the first part of the urethra. Now, it is when they describe it in the book, they say it's a walnut size. And not everybody's familiar to a walnut. Yeah. So I always say it's like the size of a very, very small egg, even smaller than that. But it's the normal size, about a 30 gram. So it's a very small organ around, underneath the bladder, around the urethra. The function of the prostate, I mentioned that part of the fluid that the prostate produces is part of your ejaculate. So it also plays a role in fertilization.
Okay.
And the other thing is that prostate also produces something called prostate-specific antigen, which is a hormone and a protein that we use actually as a screening to check if you've got prostate cancer.
Okay.
So when we check for prostate cancer, we'll talk about that. We do the blood test and we do the examination. So that PSA, that prostate-specific antigen, is what is produced by the prostate.
So you can find the dysfunction in the PSA.
Yeah, when the PSA is elevated, it's a problem because it means that there's overproduction of that PSA because the prostate is too big and that's why it's producing a lot of PSA. Or the prostate is infected because when there's infection, there's extra, the PSA goes up, or that there's cancer. And that's actually, of the three, that one is the most worrying because cancer is one of those things that nobody wants. And the worst thing about cancer is that it can spread and go outside the prostate to the rectum and to other distant organs.
Affect other.
Yeah. So the reason why I like this picture is because you can also see why when we do screening for prostate cancer, we do the rectal examination, because this is the rectum, by the way. Can you see it?
I can see it.
It's immediately behind the prostate.
Right.
So when I stick my finger in through the rectum, I'm here.
You can feel that.
Feeling the prostate.
What is the red bit?
This is the wall of the rectum.
Okay.
So this is the anus.
Yes.
This part, and then here is the wall of the rectum. So in here, that's where the poo comes from.
I can see that. So if the prostate grows in size, it will change the makeup of that shape.
Yes, you can pick up the size. So when you put here, you're feeling the size of the prostate. Is it big or not? Because essentially, if the prostate is a normal size, when you do your rectal exam, it's very small that you can feel. But once it starts being big, you can actually feel that, no, this is a big prostate. And like I mentioned, when you have nodules as well, when you palpate the prostate and then you feel nodules, then you know that this is not normal. It should be smooth and it should be small.
When you put your finger in, what are you looking for?
Okay, so first of all, you want to, as you go in, the anus, has it got tone or not? Has it got a good tone or not? Because
what
remember,
is that?
Is it pinching? Yeah,
okay.
Because everybody should have some form of a pinch in the anus. It's not completely relaxed like that. If you put your finger through an anus that's weak, whatever, there's a neurological part or something's happened there. Yeah. There's always has to be a resistance.
A pinch,
yeah. When you put
even in people who have anal sex, there should still be a pinch.
There's always a little, not a strong pinch, but there is a resistance. It's not like you enter the anus with like no resistance. No, when there is no resistance, it's an alarm. It's something's going on that you need to then chase and see what's going on. Then after that, the next thing is then to feel the prostate. Can you feel it? Yes or no? If you can, is it big or is it normal size? And then if it's big, then is it got nodules in it, or is it just big and just smooth? Ne? If it's big and smooth, it means that it's a big prostate, but it's benign, possibly. If it's big and it's got nodules, you then need to see, is these nodules as a result of prostate cancer, or is it something else? The other thing you want to feel, is it painful? Because remember I said one of the reasons is prostatitis, and prostatitis may actually be painful when you do the rectal examination. So you also want to feel, is it painful? And then of course, you want to also like almost feel around the prostate. Is the tissue around the prostate, is it nicely smooth and mobile? Because if now there's nodules and the tissue around the prostate is hard and firm, then you're thinking this nodule could be a prostate nodule, and it could be that it's now extended to the tissue around it, which tells you that now it may be more advanced disease. locally
Jeez.
advanced disease. And then another thing you want to feel for is, to see, is there blood when you come out? Is there blood in your glove? Because if there's blood, you're wondering, is it from the anus or is it from the prostate, or is it because there's some connection of sorts because of the locally advanced disease? So those are the most important things. But remember, we do rectal exams for the prostate, but the general surgeons also do a rectal examination. And they want to, because the surgeons are mostly for the GIT, the genital, the intestines. So they will also examine the...
And they're likely to spot something as well. If there is
they don't necessarily go
They're not
to
looking
prostate.
to it.
They will look at their own things. If there's a mass in there, in the rectum,
and all of that. But it's easy for them to get in because they're already in and spot something else.
Like even if we do a rectal examination for the prostate and we feel that, hang on a second,
There's
in the
something
rectum
there.
we now need to involve the general surgeons.
We were talking about how common it is. And I hear this often. It's common amongst Botaki. Black.
It's a racist cancer, ne?
Terribly.
Yeah.
And interesting, in my notes, I said it's a discriminatory cancer because it discriminates, it chooses. How is that? What are the findings in that?
I use the word racist in tongue in cheek because there's certain cancers that are common in certain races.
Races as well.
Prostate is common in black
men.
African men, whereas bladder cancer, for example, is more common in the Caucasian men, and less common in the black African men. So cancer has its way of just picking and choosing.
It's God's comedy, I call it. What else is there? It doesn't make sense.
So with prostate cancer, the thinking, we haven't pinned it down yet, but the thinking that has got it to do with our genetic makeup. Okay. So there's a lot of trials and studies that are going on to try and research what is the genetic makeup of the prostatic cell. Because remember, a cancer cell was originally a normal cell that then mutated and then became cancerous. So now we have to check the genetic makeup of that cancerous cell. How is it different from the normal cell? And is there a link up to the normal cell, which somehow is still present in the prostatic cell, that when people are maybe getting older, we can trace that abnormality in the gene that ultimately results in prostatic cancer. So the thinking is that it's more of at the level of the genetic.
And also, let's go back to the discrimination that we spoke of earlier. It's also a very ageist disease.
Yeah, most diseases are. Most cancers are acquired diseases, so it's not genetic. So what happens is that it's an influence of your environment, your lifestyle, your body not able to repair itself. Because as you age, when things go wrong in your genetic makeup, your DNA, the body actually can go and correct and repair that part of the gene that's now gone off on a tangent. Now, when you're aging, that process is not as sleek as it was when you're young. So all of that happens, and as a result, there's accumulation of abnormal cells, which then mutate and then eventually become cancer. So that's why most cancers are
ageist.
They choose, because when you start getting old, then things are not working properly. Things are not being repaired in the pace that they should be.
Enough.
And so the cancer takes advantage of that slow, sluggish pace, and
it spreads.
It's an opportunist.
Opportunist, racist, ageist.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can't figure out. It's clever, I'm telling you, and it uses our own inherent mechanisms in the body to grow.
Yeah. It uses what it has.
It outsmarts the human body.
We use the phrase African man. Is it found African men across the world?
Yeah. So there's an African link. So it's intentional that we say African. It's not.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why there's a lot of research actually in prostate cancer in Africa, because the thinking is that there's a genetic specifically that's related to African descent. Males,
whether they are
descent.
whether they are in America or wherever they. Because they are African men who've never set foot in Africa.
That's it.
So they still at risk, like every other African man.
That's it.
So you want to know they're African? Chances are they'll get prostate cancer.
It's of
That's
African
horrible.
descent, yes.
Wow. And we speak of prostate cancer. Normally, the word cancer, and I remember when I was young, there used to be this ad with a big ball of steel hitting against this this concrete.
I remember it.
You remember it?
Yes.
And it smashes it and it says cancer
can be cured.
Can be beaten.
Yeah, beaten.
That's the word. I remember that so well, how the psychology of cancer has always been like that. You know, I have a mother who's suffered from, and I know she wouldn't like me talking about this, who suffered from colon cancer and survived it and continues to go through treatment with it. You know how you go regularly to go check continuously even after you've survived it. And the logic in my head has always been cancer can be beaten because of that commercial that I saw when I was a kid so many times. I'm glad you remember it. But every time you hear the word cancer on TV, you hear, cancer. And I use yo yabotaki. I'm wrong. It's normally American television that says it's got cancer. It becomes a death sentence. Is that a normal reaction to it? Is it as much a death sentence that we think it is? This cancer thing.
Yeah. The human in me wants to talk about your mom situation. And if I may, because it's very, 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 very crucial. When you've got a cancer, let it not be a secret, you know, because most cancers are familial. Like I'm telling you that the African descent, prostate cancer, we'll talk about the risk if that's what you'd like to go into in this interview. But family risk is a big part of it. So I always, whenever I diagnose a patient with prostate cancer, I tell them that, and this is one of the gifts that we as Africans have, that Rinaldi Society. I offer myself to my patients and say, okay, Papa, unale prostate cancer. Limo society, unale family society, and he'll be like, yeah, Rinaldi, Papa, ne ke kopa hore o kentshe prostate cancer mo agenda ya the next family society. Because people keep it a secret. And then when you keep it a secret, you're actually depriving people to screen earlier and get the cancer earlier.
Other people that are not related to this.
Yeah, specifically your family. Because remember, we spoke that Africans or males of African descent have got a higher risk. Now, the risk increases if you've got a family risk.
It runs in the family.
So if you've been diagnosed with prostate cancer, you need to go and tell the rest of your families, your brothers, your sons, all your family that, listen, I've been diagnosed with this thing. Hopefully at that stage it's still curable. But even if it's not curable, you need to tell guys, please make sure you get tested before it spreads, because maybe you're in the situation where it spread in your case, but hopefully not. But if we need to catch it before it spreads so that we can potentially cure you of the cancer. So yes, cancer can be beaten. I bring this up when I'm just using your mom as an example.
It's a good example.
One should offer themselves to your mom and the family, because colorectal cancer is also familial. And people should then know, what is this disease? How do I prevent it? It's not a urological thing, so I won't go into advising. But like I'm saying that people, you need to know, what is this cancer? How do I prevent it? And how do I screen for it? Because some things are not preventable. So the best you can do is make sure you keep checking, is it there or not?
Because now we know it's in the family.
Yeah, it's in the family. Yeah. So when it's there, how do I treat it in time so that I can cure it? And fortunately, your mom actually beat the cancer. Cancer can be beaten.
Yeah.
Now, your question was, can cancer be beaten? So indeed, it can be beaten.
And then is it a death sentence? As we normally, and I use the word normal because I don't think we do really. We do that we see that on TV, where we react to it as, wow, it's, you got 7 years to live. You have 3 weeks. We've seen stuff like that in movies. What is that?
That is, we live in the movies.
Because we do. You know, when we finish talking here, chances are they were going to be exposed to some television or some book somewhere, you know.
Okay. So cancer inherently, the actual cell is it is such that it's trying to outsmart the human body. So once it's mutated, it then goes rogue.
Ooh.
So and tries to survive the human body. In other words, go beyond, outlive the human body, you know. So it can be beaten when it's localized. When it's a localized disease where we can't, if it's in the prostate, for example, if it's localized in the prostate, if we do a radical prostatectomy and because normally we take the specimen to the lab and they'll tell us, yes, the cancer is in the prostate, but it's not outside in the margin. So we've removed all the cancer, but that doesn't mean that we can now forget about it. Every 3 months, you still have to come and check because it can recur. There's something that we call biochemical recurrence, where we've removed the cancer. The lab told the histologist, said to us, no, it's clean, everything is fine. It's gone, but then somehow it comes back. So cancer can be beaten, but it doesn't come lying down. Once you've been diagnosed with cancer, you need to keep checking because it can sneak up again.
Unlike a boxing match, after they count 10, it's not the end of it.
No, it's not the end of it.
It just wakes up. It says, I'm still fighting.
Yeah, because remember, ultimately, a cancer cell was once normal.
Yes.
So remember that there are normal cells which also can mutate and then become cancerous as well. Especially now if already that particular individual had cancer. So already in the genetic makeup, they may have what we're still trying to discover and formulate and finalize and say, this is what it is. They can still become, that mutation can happen and form cancer. So it can be cured, but then that cure is an ongoing confirmation that yes, indeed, your cancer is still cured.
Yeah.
It's in remission. That's why they call it remission.
Remission is core. It means it's dormant.
Right now, there's no signs of
There's
cancer.
nothing. Yeah. But as you say, your body was able to produce this cancer before.
Some cells went rogue and they were able to accumulate and become cancer. Because when cells go rogue, the body should be able to flag them and take
fight
them out. Yeah.
Why is it that with cancer, and we can use prostate deliberately, that the body doesn't react immediately to telling you that there's something wrong? If I have a pain in my colon, there will be a pain. I'll feel it. If I have an itch, I will scratch it. But why is it that, and maybe I'm wrong in the way I ask the question, but why is it that with prostate cancer, amongst others, and even other cancers, that your body is not letting you that, hey, Mona, you have an itch? Why is that?
Well, first is because it's an internal organ. And you can imagine from what I showed you now that once it's advanced, that's when you actually start getting the symptoms. For example, this is the rectum. Once it's spread to the rectum, then you can have the change in bowel habits, constipation, diarrhea, for example. And then also once it's then spread and like compress the urethra, then you can have urinary tract symptoms. I like your question because with an important message in this interview is to say that we actually don't want to wait for the symptoms. Prostate cancer is all about screening, and screening means you are asymptomatic, because by the time you have the symptoms, it means that it's already advanced. So although I mentioned the fun-wise as lower urinary tract symptoms, it must be clear that I was talking about symptoms of urine. But with prostate
Not
cancer,
prostate.
You don't want to wait to have symptoms before you present yourself. Ultimately, when you have low urinary tract symptoms, we're going to check them, and hopefully they are because of benign things that's happening, But with prostate cancer specifically, screening is all about checking when you're asymptomatic. In other words, you actually don't have symptoms. You are 40 or 45, depending on where
you're good.
And you don't have symptoms, but you just want to check. I know that I'm African. And I know that there's a family history for prostate cancer. My uncle was, my uncle's doctor came to our family society and spoke about prostate cancer. So my uncle's got prostate cancer. So I now am 40, so I need to go test. So I'm here for that. So prostate cancer, you're not testing because you've got symptoms. You're testing because you're screening. You don't have symptoms. We want to check. We want to do a blood test, the prostate specific antigen test that we spoke about, the PSA.
Yeah.
And then we also want to do a rectal examination to check, is there anything in the prostate that I can feel? And that's at this point, I also want to demonstrate that, remember the prostate, this is a 2D image. The body is a 3D.
Yes, that thing is it has a shape.
Yeah, it's a shape.
It's not flat.
Exactly. So when you put your finger in here, you're only feeling a component of your prostate.
Of course, because look at how big it is.
Front there, we don't have ways of checking here.
Yeah.
So also this is like, again, it's the only access we have to having an impression is what's happening in the the prostate. But it may be that you have a normal rectal examination and then you have a high PSA, because a PSA is a blood test. So it could be that the prostate cancer is here.
It's infected in the front.
Palpate it.
Yes.
Yeah, you've got a cancer here in the front. You can't palpate it. But then because it's producing a lot of PSA from the cancer, it's elevated. That's the reason why you need both tests to be done. You can't just have a negative rectal examination, say you're fine, or have a negative blood test and say you're fine. You need both of them to be negative for you to say, fine, I'm good for now. And then, of course, regular screening, whether it's every year, every 2 years, or every 8 years, depending on what happens. But currently, the advice is that you should be going annually for your prostate cancer screening.
Let's talk about the screening.
Yeah.
Regularly. It's a word that comes across a lot when we're talking prostate. Invasive screening, we all know that. It comes with its own burdens. It's like, I said it's like God's biggest joke. It's like, I want to give you this problem and I'll give you a really weird way to find out that you have it. And I use the word weird because having your finger up your bum is not the most natural thing for a lot of people, a lot of men in particular. It speaks of all sorts of things, of anal sex. It speaks of all sorts of things. It's taboo. Is it avoidable? Or you say there's two, PSA and that. Is PSA enough? Let me phrase the question that way.
You need both of them to be negative for you to say, I've tested, I've screened, and both my tests were negative. And in fact, it's not even that both the tests, my screening was negative. The screening is
the whole
rectal
thing.
Exam and the blood test.
Yeah.
If you've done one, you actually haven't screened. Yeah.
So you have to do, PSA is negative. You walk off saying, I'm good. You're saying, no, wait, come here. There's still more.
By the way, PSA can never be negative because remember, as part of the prostate produces that prostate-specific.
Yes, it's low. That's the word. It's low. Yes, as you put it, it's acceptable.
Yeah.
So you're saying if you've done one,
No, you need to.
You're
do
not
both
done.
Of them. You need to do both of them too. Remember, this is not just a formality. You need to convince yourself that I'm good. It's not like you're just doing it to mark a register.
Yes.
So if you've done your PSA and it's acceptable, and you haven't done a rectal examination, you haven't done anything. You can't convince yourself that you've screened because you haven't screened.
Here's a conversation that is not within your world, however important in some way it is. Should prostate cancer screening be free?
It is free.
Completely.
It is free because
you walk into any. Yeah. I can walk into your practice.
Okay.
You see what
public,
I mean? Yes.
It is free in the public.
Yeah.
It's not free.
Well, the health system is tricky. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it is free in the. You're touching on a topic that's very close to my heart because incidentally, I'm working both in public and private. Yeah. I'm working in private because that's where most things happen in terms of financially. But my heart is about making a change in the public. And somehow my direction, we talk about the testicles and how God has been leading me to
this
urology.
World.
I'm also led to know that my job is to link up the private and public sector as well.
Yeah.
Prostate cancer screening is free.
It's free in the public health system.
Sector. But we had, there are various, initiatives that are done. Like, for example, I work at the urology hospital in private. So we had the campaign where people were allowed to screen for prostate cancer with a blood test, and those that had abnormal blood tests then the PSA were then flagged by it was done in association with the Prostate Cancer Foundation of South Africa. So then they guided them to where they can progress. Obviously, like I said, this is not screening. That's why it's not even
it's not enough
screening.
Yeah.
It was just that I had my blood test done, because then that still needs to be coupled with a rectal examination. But some people have never had either done. And then when the PSA is high, that's the only way that you're going to get them to actually present and have the rectal examination.
And that could be a little late.
It could be late, but it could also be on time.
Yeah.
And so it's not something that should be overlooked because it's not the full screening, but it's an opportunity for you to better know what the status is regarding one of the screening tests.
Do you think, and one of the reasons why you're here, and I made the call to say I would like to speak to you, is that I don't think there's enough drive to push black men. We are the one at the highest risk to do this. I don't think there's enough communication. And that's why I approached it by saying it should be free. And maybe I should have completed the thought by saying it should be free and every black man must be preoccupied with just getting that test done. Are we there?
So we are not, and we are not, and I'm not too sure whether we're ready for that. Because remember, the more people that screen, the more people will be diagnosed.
And the medical health
that
system
need to be treated.
The health system will have to carry this.
The current situation is radical prostatectomy, which is the treatment for curative. It's one of the treatment options. If it's done open, you need a high care bed, and a high care bed is limited resources. Whereas if it's done laparoscopically, that's when you can actually the patient can go back to the normal ward. But even then, for example, in government, you don't get diagnosed today and be operated this week.
Tomorrow, which is what would happen in the private sector.
A month's time.
Sometimes
you have to wait a significant amount of time. We've got waiting lists. So, it's necessary, but I'm not sure whether we're ready for managing it, the outcome of that screening. Because remember, when we screen, we must have a solution to the disease if it does then get diagnosed.
What is an ideal picture for an ideal society that is testing and ready to carry? There should be probably hospitals of your kind spread across, and they offer free service, essentially. What is an ideal picture of that readiness?
An ideal picture is a private health system that supports and augments the public health system. And that's where my passion is actually. Because the public health system is a hub of knowledge, of skill.
Which one? The public?
Public.
Yes.
I mean, the kind of expertise that are in the public health system
is
amazing.
Yeah.
I'm from Steve Biko, so the kind of people, the kind of giants that are in that building is just amazing. Skill, knowledge, everything. Because so it's training institute as well. So you can imagine the kind of research that people are doing there and the knowledge that comes with that research. So the hub in the public health sector cannot be. I can't even begin to explain to you the wealth in that system. The problem is it's not able to supply to the demand of the pathologies that are in the public health system. So that's why I said the private health system needs to augment it. I won't comment about the NHI, but in my mind, it would be ideal to have a system where there's an overflow of public health system, that overflow can be taken up by the private. And that's my dream.
But the private is business.
Yeah, it's business.
It's not easy.
And that's why whenever I tell people that I'd like to have the same thing of me, that's where the bottleneck stops. They'll say, okay, but how?
How do we pay for this?
We have to find that how. And I mean, I told you that doctors are made to find the possible in the impossible. And right now, that's where I am at. I'm trying to find the solution to this thing because we have to get there somehow.
Wow, it's a tricky space, eh? It impressed me when you said, if we did mass testing, what we'll find on the other end might just scare us.
Because it's like actually making false promises.
Yeah.
You tell people, come test, and then they test positive, and then they need treatment, and then they have to wait for months and months and years or what. And normally it's not years, but
it is long.
And they will have to wait until eventually, worst case scenario, the disease progresses, and now we haven't caught it in time, and now it's spread, and now what does all the screening and fuss about the screening about? When you can't help them once you've diagnosed them. But that doesn't say people shouldn't screen. Hey?
I was about to say,
people should screen. The health problems, I'm one of many who are trying to find a solution to this. In the meantime, people should still go and screen. People should still try and access the health system. Yes, we will have people falling between the cracks because of the current situation. But in the meantime, we are moving in the right direction.
Something you said when you were talking about the progression of the disease, and you're saying, it's moving and you're told to wait, it's moving. Can the medical science tell how quickly it's spreading? Let's say I have it and can medical science say, oh, it'll move at a speed of 120 k's an hour, for example?
Okay.
Can we get a sense of it?
So prostate cancer is one of those cancers that actually progresses at a very slow rate. Like in 10 years, that's when you get a lot of movement. So
Whoa.
if somebody has got a life expectancy of less than 10 to 15 years, we actually don't bother screening. So you've got a 90-year-old or an 80-year-old or even a 60-year-old who's got heart problems and whatever.
Other issues.
Yes, that are probably going to affect him and lead to his death prior to prostate cancer, because I'm saying 10 to 15 years, then we're not going to go and do the screening for that. So prostate cancer specifically it gives a lot of leeway. And that's the reason why, even with prostate cancer, perhaps that's one of the cancers we can start with screening, because we've got a little bit of leeway in terms of the progression, because we've got time. And maybe when the numbers come up, it will show the urgency of this matter, because sometimes when screening is not done, we are not aware of the problem. It's like they say, it's the small, it's a tip of an iceberg. If we're not aware of the numbers in terms of prostate cancer, because the screening is not really taken up, we're not aware of how much we must actually put towards addressing this prostate cancer. And if the stats are telling us that majority of, prostate cancer is common in the African community, it means that we should be actually focusing a lot of our funding and
in that area.
In that area of prostate cancer specifically.
Is there a standard way of handling a prostate cancer diagnosis? Like I injured my arm 2 weeks ago with X-rays and now I'm going physio. It's almost standard. You can tick it off there through boxes. Is a standard way? Like, do we find that there's a procedure?
Yes. So prostate cancer, once you're diagnosed with prostate cancer, the next step is to assess, is it localized disease, locally advanced disease, or is it metastatic? Metastatic
local is around exactly where it is.
It's in the prostate only. Locally advanced means that it's gone outside the prostate, means it could be affecting the tissue around the prostate, even to the extent of the rectum. Or it could have gone to the lymph nodes that are not associated with the prostate, because lymph nodes are things that drain every organ. So the regional ones, which are the ones that drain that organ, if it's spread to ones beyond that, then it's metastasized. But if it's gone to the lymph nodes, it's already locally advanced. It's not only in the prostate, it's gone outside the actual organ. And then metastatic means that it's gone to distant organs. Now it's not just the rectum, it's gone to the bones. Typically the prostate starts with the bones, so it's gone to the bones. It can go to the liver, it can go to the lungs. And so by that stage, it's like full on rogue now. The cancer is just completely taking over the body. So the treatment will depend on what stage
you are. Because they're like load shedding. There are different stages.
Yeah.
Stage 1 is
localized disease. That we have potentially the opportunity to cure you.
What's the worst stage?
The worst stage is metastasis, stage 5.
When it's
spread to other organs.
Do you find those cases?
We do. A lot of patients that present to us actually present when it's metastasized, when it's gone to other organs, when they've got paralysis and they're coming and they're finding out, for a week or two, I haven't been walking. It started off with like feeling it, pins and needles, and then it progressed that I got weak. Now I can't walk. And we find that yes, there's a problem with the bone, but that problem is because it's prostate cancer that's now spread to the bone. So it can. And that's why it just reminds us that you don't want to test only when you've got symptoms.
Yeah.
Because symptoms are too late. When you have symptoms, it's now spread.
I don't think we've spent enough time on symptoms and warning signs. What are the most common?
We don't want warning signs.
Well, but I'm already there.
No.
Let's assume I'm already
about
there.
The fun wise, but that's
the whole urinary system. Yes.
But you don't want symptoms. I actually don't really like talking about symptoms, because, like I'm saying,
when
we get symptoms, we at advanced stages, and by the time you have symptoms anyway, you will present to your doctor,
and you won't be stage 1 more often than not.
I think my sharing of information is to say you need to go and screen as soon as you're 40 or 45, depending on what is relevant for you.
Yes.
Symptoms, because in essence, like you say, if I mention symptoms of advanced disease, people are going to wait for it to be advanced because essentially the symptoms are of advanced disease.
That's what it is. The minute you start coughing, you're sick.
It may be that the cough is because, for instance, in this case, the prostate cancer spread to the lungs.
Oh,
and why am I going to tell you that you must only start going when you're coughing? Because then...
Well, you understand that because every time I think of prostate cancer and cancer in general, I think of how men behave towards the medical system. Men are not quick to rush to the doctor. I'm sure you're aware of that. Interesting, I had a chat on the radio about this and what is our problem with, as men, with doctors. And
what did I say? What's the problem?
Actually, the answer has a lot to do with I pain, I can handle it. Half the time is, man, it's not a big deal. My body always has something that's not 100%. And I'm used to that. And some, man, I will talk to man. For what? Do you know, there's a very casual / man, in daughter type approach to it. And that's quite uncomfortable for me when I think of that, because I'm not one to go to doctors, but I hate it when something is wrong with my body. So when there's something wrong, I will call a doctor friend and say, I'm child, man, dideng. You know, at least I start with a doctor who's a friend, but not everybody has a doctor friend. You know what I mean?
Can I tell you, maybe to entice you, actually visiting a doctor is like a social gathering, to be honest with you. And I go to I mentioned that I'm in the government. I go to our clinic and the kind of buzz that is there at our clinic, because men, it's like, can you imagine going to a place where men are there and they're chatting? But unfortunately, they're there for disease, because by the time a patient gets referred to urology, there's already a problem. So it's sad that that's
when they get to that stage.
By the time I see them, somebody has done the screening and it's no longer screening, it's disease now. So, but the context is the kind of buzz and the community and the discussions and the exchange of knowledge and myths and information that happens there. It's like a great... Sometimes I want to sit in the queues and join in the conversation.
And hear what the conversations
are about. So just
for
that, I mean, if you that person that doesn't want to... Yes, the waiting in the queue is horrible. But the way you are so interesting, there's a lot of people in the queue that are just as interesting. The queues that we wait for voting, it's that kind of a situation.
Those conversations.
It's you meet people that you would have never met, have discussions that you have never had. And bonus, you're getting a health check at the end of this queue.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the one thing I can say. So it's not as miserable as
and it should not be.
It isn't. And waiting, yes, you have to wait in a long queue, but even that wait in the queue is an opportunity to network with fabulous people. Like I'm saying, I'm not joking when I say sometimes I want to sit in the queue and like chat to some of these people. You know?
So you're saying
it's not that bad.
We should remove this burden of seeing doctors as men.
It's not that bad. And you know what? You're not that busy to wait a few hours in a queue.
That's true. What else would you be doing?
Yeah. I mean, I know that people have got, proper jobs and, life is busy, but you can make time to just wait in the queue and get a check. And remember, this doesn't happen every day. If you do prostate screening, you have to wait once a year for this thing. So once a year, you can actually sit in a queue and network with people, get a health check, and the examination part, which is the other part that people are, report as being invasive.
Yeah.
The rectal examination, it's really not that bad, hey?
And it doesn't take very long.
I actually went out of my way to come to assess. When I do a rectal examination, how are the faces on my patients looking like? I actually got a look at them because I want to see.
That's a research. That's a paper.
Yeah.
That's a paper.
Do they frown? And you'd be surprised that, first of all, the feedback, they're like, no, it's not.
There's nothing there.
It's not that bad after all. Is that it? Are you done? I'm like, yeah, I'm done.
I remember Ntombi asked you, does it take long? I remember that question.
Yes.
And I remember you said, no, it takes a second.
20 seconds.
Yes.
It doesn't take long at all. And I actually...
And it's not painful.
It's just a discomfort. It really isn't painful. Mind you, I've got female hands, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's not a big finger.
Urologists have issues with that. But as for me...
That's an advantage you have.
You see, that's why females also have some advantages. So I've got female hands and it really isn't that bad. And like I'm saying, I look at my patients and they're more anxious pre-exam. Like I put them in a position and and they're like waiting for this big thing to happen. And then suddenly I'm like, okay, your prostate is
I'm
good.
done.
You're fine. And they're like, really? You're done? It wasn't that bad. I'm like, yeah. So then you can come next year and tell your friends that it's not that bad.
Maybe the first thing you do, man, when you go for prostate cancer is to check the size of the doctor's fingers. That could be like, I want hair. She's got tiny little fingers.
And remember, the examination is only the one component of the complement. You can have a urologist with a big finger. The examination is horrible, and then be a phenomenal surgeon.
Oh,
so
yeah. It's just one part of it.
It's risky to now choose people because of fingers.
Well, I'm just saying that small discomfort has become one of the reasons.
That,
it's become one of the reasons why it is, whether we agree or not, it's a hurdle that people have to psychologically jump as well. Being a female urologist dealing with men, what are some of your I'll use the word challenge just loosely because maybe you don't have any.
Well, especially when I started, when I was a registrar, when I used to go in my office and move in, like I'm saying, I'm the first female urologist from UP. So when I went there and people would know that in that room there's a female examining the patients. So when the patient would go out and say, next, you can go to the next, then the guy would be like, no, now I'm waiting for somebody else, you go. And then that guy would also say, no.
Oh, no.
So it would be one of those.
So they would avoid this lady.
Always coming to me. And then eventually I decided, you know what, now I'm not going to go in so that they see me. I'm going to sit in the office and then let the patient say, like, next. So when I would think it's polite to go and fetch my patient, So now I decided, no, the patient must then go, you go see the doctor. And they wouldn't know who went in that office. And then and then I'd see them
when they walk in.
And I'd be like, is there a problem? And then like, no. And then like, would you like another? I actually offer myself because examination is intimate. You really don't want to be examined and talking to somebody that you're not comfortable with.
You have to be comfortable.
You have to be comfortable. And literally, it's very invasive. I'm going to be sticking my finger in your anus. And if you're not happy with me, how on earth can that work? So I do give them an opportunity when I see them a little bit perturbed that, listen, you don't have to, there are other people. And then of course they get embarrassed and they're like, no, it's fine.
Does it still happen? Do you still find?
It does, but not to the extent that it used to happen. Because I think there's many more female urologists now and in essence, many more female doctors. But I can tell you what still happens, like recently it happens all the time, that you tell a gentleman, listen, let's go, let me go examine you. You go to the bed and they'll lie down and then you tell them, take your pants off, and they'll take just their trousers
and leave their
knickers. They'll leave their
underwear.
undies, the knickers on. And then you examine everything else. Then you're like, okay, you can take the undies.
We have to go to the next stage.
And then they take them off, then they block that part.
Like, dude, that's
then
the reason you're
examine
here.
Everything around and everything. You like, can I check there? Because now the hand's there. Then you have to like tell them, can I check there? And then they're almost like surprised and that
like,
you want to check there, and you're thinking, actually from the get-go, that's where I wanted to check.
Only thing I want. Everything else is secondary. That's the main game. Oh boy.
Well, the kidneys and all that. But
but I know, that's we have to go
we have
through
to get
that.
there. That's part of, my area, everything. So then they remove reluctantly and then we check. And then of course, it's not only about allowing to check. Remember, they're human beings.
True.
Things can happen.
Yes.
Things do happen.
Of course, things do happen all the time.
All the time. And then
you've learned
and then I ask them, no, sorry, apologies for this. It will be a little bit ticklish. It will be a little bit discomfort. Just don't mind me. I'm trying to.
You've learned to accept it, I've
learned to accept it. And when things go, the way that is unexpected, I just continue with my examination. And I continue talking. I normalize
the environment.
It's a good thing because then I'm able to assess, are things working properly?
I was about to say, you tick a box that was unintentional.
Yeah.
When the machine, now you know the machine is working.
Yeah.
Let's move to the next thing.
Yeah.
Wow. It's such an interesting space that you're in. Sexual intimacy and prostate cancer. Is there any research there? Because while I'm being treated and does it affect the machine?
So prostate cancer, the operation is radical prostatectomy. And one of the options, I shouldn't say the treatment, is radical prostatectomy. And with that operation, we work very close to the neurovascular bundle, the nerves in the pelvis. And those nerves actually play a crucial role in erectile functioning. So most of that, on some of the patients, the likelihood is that most patients' erectile function will somewhat deteriorate. Not some of them, they will still have some residual erectile functioning, but there will be some loss of erectile functioning
during the treatment,
after the treatment,
even after.
After the treatment, like long term after the treatment. So we've got mechanisms of trying to prevent it and reduce it. We call penile rehabilitation, where we give them medication to try and stimulate the blood flow and all of that. But so some patients will still have erectile problems after the operation and lifelong. But remember,
we have those solutions. Yes, we have those solutions we spoke about. Are any sector of society at a high risk besides age and color of skin, so to speak? Is there any other society that's at a high risk for prostate cancer? Now, let me make a reference. Unhealthy eating and so forth and so forth and so forth, smoking, drinking, obesity. We spoke about these things when we were talking about erectile dysfunction. Do we find those things also when we talk about prostate cancer?
Prostate cancer, what risk factors that have been clearly defined is age. The risk for prostate cancer increases after the age of 50 and it increases significantly after the age of 50, but even more so after the age of 70. So age is a big risk factor. And then race, African, Black, we spoke about that. And then, of course, family history. Those are the ones that have clearly documented. And that is the reason why, in terms of screening, if you've got any of those risk factors, you should be screening from the age of 40. If you've got none of those risk factors, you should be screening from the age of 45.
Okay.
Yeah.
But health, smoking, and all of that, it's probably not as well researched as it would be eventually.
It's not conclusive.
Like the lifestyle factors.
Yeah, but it does play a role in the health. Remember, like
naturally,
I said, your immune system is a big role. It plays a big role in keeping your body healthy. And healthy means making sure that there's DNA repair when cells start going rogue. And remember, the whole process of carcinogenesis is when a cell was once normal, then it mutated, and that mutation was not corrected by the body, and as a result, it then went ahead and became cancerous. And so all of those play a role in the whole functioning of the body, the immune system and the repair of the body. And so it's important to make sure that you do lead a healthy lifestyle. But what is actually interesting is that with prostate cancer, one of the findings is that if you ejaculate more than 21 times a month, supposedly that is protective.
I've read that. I didn't believe it. I didn't think of it. I just moved on. And I'm glad you brought it up. I didn't have to. Is it researched?
It's a research finding. It's something that is documented that and also 21 times a month.
Is a lot of times.
Is it?
No. It's a lot of times.
I'm being sneaky there.
No. And it's fine. It's a lot of times.
So because there's 30 days in a month.
There's 30 days in a month. So the assumption is on average, well, not even on average, 21 days. But also the equal assumption is that you do it every day. And here's another assumption, that it assumes you don't do it twice a day, 3 times a day, 5 times a day. So the question is, what is the average? And I'm not in the position to tell you, because I live one life. I don't live everybody else's life. But I would like to assume, if you're a healthy man with a proper libido, 21 times is actually not so many times.
21 times is actually, if you think about it, it's less 9 to 10 days, depending on what month it is, because a month has got 30 or 31 days in it. So essentially, it's Monday to Friday, less the weekends.
Pretty much.
The weekends is what, 2 days, that's 8 days, less the weekends essentially, because we've got 4 weekends a month.
We can reverse the maths and say it's less the weekdays and it's twice or 3 times the weekends.
Yeah,
you know
because
what I mean?
it just talks about ejaculation. So if you had 3 rounds in a go, then you've already...
Yes. And we also assume that it's only during actual sexual intercourse. It could also be masturbation.
100%,
yes.
100%.
Yeah.
You were talking about the norm. We don't, my field, maybe sexologists would be able to answer that question accurately. But my field in terms of the number of intercourse is when we talk about fertility.
Yeah.
So when we want to say that a couple has had enough sexual exposure for us to then say that, these people need intervention because it's not working, is when they have three times or more in a week.
That's the language you speak. Sexologists will probably give you a different number.
But also remember, the context is for us to say they should be able to be fertile.
Yes.
To create
human.
Yeah. If they meet 3 times a week without any contraception, then 3 or more times. Then if they don't fall pregnant within a year, then
something is wrong.
Something we need to investigate further. So 3 times is not even going to meet that 21.
No, So, no, not at all, actually. So the 21 times, research says if you ejaculate, but what does the research really say about the prostate in that regard? What happens to it? When you ejaculate, what is happening to the prostate? Are you keeping it busy? And if it's busy, it means it doesn't fall prey to disease. What is the story?
It's one thing that I also like you mentioned that you read it and you shelved it. I
moved on.
To me, it's something that I wouldn't necessarily tell a patient to do
that
for the advantage of prevention. So it's something that I haven't really looked deeper into. Because simply for that reason, I wouldn't really recommend it. I'm just mentioning.
You can recommend it as a doctor, as a medical solution.
No.
You must.
But it's a finding. So I can communicate that finding, but I certainly I haven't recommended it.
Wow.
It's interesting, isn't it?
It is. Whoa, the human body. That's why I get fascinated by doctors. I had a pediatrician not so long ago, and we were talking about breastfeeding and breast milk. And I remember, interesting, something you said earlier, when you said the human body, the older it gets, its immune system doesn't function as effectively. It's not jumpy.
Sharp.
You know what I mean? And she said, with kids, we wait. And the body just repairs because the body is building.
Yes.
So it fixes very quickly.
It's its job. At that time, it's on building mode.
Yes.
So it's there to make sure, fix things, build, find proteins, make.
Because that's all it's doing.
That's all it's doing at the time. It's all it's doing. That's kids, when I do a circumcision, the difference between a small child and the healing.
And an adult.
Yeah. The healing is like, it's day and night. The kind of, kids heal very quickly because the body is in that repairing mode.
Yeah. And I remember that. And I remember thinking, the human body. UTI, what is that?
UTI is urinary tract infections. It's a male and female term.
Glad you brought it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So remember the urinary tract. So anything along that tract that I drew you.
There's a pie.
Whether it's in the kidney, whether it's in the ureter, whether it's in the bladder, whether it's in the urethra, it's a urinary tract infection. We normally divide it into upper tract and lower tract. Lower tract is the bladder and the urethra. Upper tract is the kidney and the ureter. So it's any infection along the urinary tract.
Is there a standard way of getting it? Let me ask it. If I was a patient in your care, and I would say, how do you get it?
Okay. All right.
How do you get this disease?
Yeah. Females are more at risk of urinary tract infections because their urethra is short. So you can get urinary tract infections either through direct invasion, where the bug, the bacteria or the virus or whatever it is, climbs up the urethra and eventually reaches the bladder and establishes there and forms an infection.
Comes from outside.
Yeah. So like I'm saying, and that's why the females are more prone because the urethra is short.
Small, yeah.
If a small bug had to, and I'm talking like microscopic level, had to crawl up the long male urethra, by the time it gets there, you've urinated and you flushed
it out. Yeah.
So females are more prone because
it goes in quickly and it's there.
Yeah. Or you can get it through the blood. For example, if you got an infection somewhere else and that infection accesses the blood, remember the blood is circulated throughout all the organs, and then it reaches the urinary symptoms, and then organs. Then you get a urinary tract infections because the infection was somewhere else. It went into the blood, and then when the blood was then delivered to the kidney, and as such, you get then a urinary tract infection. So in terms of prevention for females, we always say that they must just all these topics are intense, like lots of information.
I can imagine.
Just to summarize, females, you must have proper hygiene. You wipe from forward to back, for example, not the other way around.
You wipe from forward to back.
Yeah.
Not the other way around. Because you're taking the bacteria from the back.
The anus. To the anus
vagina.
Inherently has got bacteria and all of those things. So now if you're going to wipe the other way around, those bugs are going to land up in the urethra outside here, and they can then crawl up. Yeah.
So for men, that problem is not as severe as it would be for women.
Females, you have to. Hygiene is important.
Front to back.
Yeah. And then the other simple things: empty your bladder regularly, because as you're urinating, you're flushing your urethra.
Yeah.
So anything that's on its way there will then
find its way out.
And general health, make sure that if you've got an infection elsewhere, it must be treated. There's all sorts of things also about cranberry juice and all of that. But like I say, it's a very intense discussion. But just for the basics, that's the important information. Yeah.
Testicles, accidental testicle injuries. I'm sure you deal with stuff like that. We spoke earlier that they may affect even a lot of things, but is it a common thing that you find that testicles have been injured and in such a way that it affects other things that have to do with your bodily functions when it comes to your what is it? What is the word?
Urological system.
Exactly.
Okay, so the testicles. The main function of the testicles is a hormonal function to produce testosterone and also to make the sperm. So it's got those very, very two important functions. When God makes two of things, when the Creator makes two things, you know that it's so important that we need a backup plan. There's
kidneys,
two eyes,
and
2 ears,
everything.
And there's only one penis. Anyway.
Oh boy, it's maybe not that important. Anyway, I'm joking.
And then so there's two testicles.
Yes.
So if you injure one testicle, and then you left with just the one testicle, then you will be able to produce enough testosterone and also enough sperm to be able to be
one can work
and can function. So once you've had one testis removed, that's when you actually have to be extra cautious, because you can't lose both testes. We remove the testes as it's one of the treatment options for treating prostate cancer, by the way, because we're trying to decrease, if it's metastasized, we're trying to decrease the testosterone. And one of the ways is to shut down the factory, which is removing the testes. So you can live, but in terms of doing that, remember that testosterone is responsible for male development, the secondary male characteristics, so your muscle bulk, your beard,
of course, all of that,
even
voice,
your mood,
even your voice,
yes. All of these is all the testosterone, and it plays a role in cardiovascular functioning as well. So you can live, but then you're not going to live an optimal life. So if you've damaged one testis, the other testis is more than enough to function, but you can't. It's not ideal to have both your testes not functioning. Because testosterone is an important hormone.
So is there a relationship between testosterone, and I think based on your answer there is, testosterone and prostate cancer?
Testosterone is a hormone that is very important in the male development. And prostate is also an important functioning of the male functioning. We spoke about fertility and also the fact that it forms a part of, the ejaculate. Now, testosterone is important in the growth and development of the prostate. So, and remember I mentioned that all cancer cells actually hijack the body's functioning for its own agenda. So the prostate cancer will also grow and progress using testosterone. Even though testosterone is used for the growth and development of a normal prostate,
it says here's a resource I can use.
Takes advantage of that and also grows and develops and progresses using testosterone. So one of the mechanisms to actually decrease the progression of prostate cancer is to decrease the testosterone level, so that the prostate cancer is starved in a way from testosterone.
From energy, essentially.
Prostate cancer is then starved from testosterone. Yeah.
What is Is it POIS? What is that?
POIS. So that's what the thing is, polyorgasmic illness syndrome. So that's going into sexual dysfunction.
Yeah, okay.
So sexual functioning, before we go to dysfunction, is libido. First of all, you have to have a good, healthy libido. Then you have to have a good erection. Then you have to have good ejaculatory function. Then you have to have good orgasm, orgasmic, and have satisfaction after you, while you're engaging in sexual intercourse. So the ejaculatory part, some patients get actually sick after orgasm.
Whoa.
Yeah. So and this is something that commonly happens to the extent that they actually prevent sexual intercourse because of trying to avoid this illness.
That pain, yeah. Is it a pain?
It's a severe pain, and you literally get sick. That's why it's called an illness.
Wow.
So, and it's associated with orgasm.
That must be rare.
It is rare. It is rare, but to those few people, it's an important thing. Medicine is such that nothing is unimportant. Even if it affects the small minority, we still have to address it.
Yeah. So that exists.
Yeah,
this
it is.
thing.
Yeah, thanks.
Because it came about.
Yes, yeah.
What do you say as we conclude to those that'll be watching, in male and female for that matter? Because we spoke about a lot of things, but prostate being really at the reason I invited you. And I remember as I was preparing, I realized that prostate is too small a subject. Let's the other issues. And let me take advantage of that. And what do you say to a person, a man, a black man, a woman, a family member, about this thing as we conclude of prostate cancer in our society? What do you say as a parting shot to them?
Prostate cancer is a cancer that can be beaten. I'm going to refer us back to the cancer
to the childhood TV commercial.
Yeah, especially because those who I'm talking to would remember those adverts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So prostate cancer can be beaten. The big trick is to catch it when it can be beaten. Beaten in the sense that curing it. Beaten in the medical sense means that we can give you treatment no matter even if it's not to cure, but we can still help you live a healthy, high quality of life, even with the cancer living inside of you. But my message is we want to catch it while it's still localized. And the only way we can do that is if you start screening for it even before you have symptoms. And if you've got the symptoms that we spoke about, then if you're the age of 40, you need to go and have your prostate screening and have both the test, the blood test, and the rectal examination done. And then once they give you the results, even if they're negative, remember that it's an ongoing screening. So annually, you need to report to your GP, your local clinic, your urologist, wherever you decide to have your screening done, so that we can keep checking. Is this cancer still not there yet?
Yeah.
Or is it never going to come, hopefully, So that's the starting point. But remember that those that do test positive, we can then check, is it localized in the prostate or has it spread to other organs? If it's localized, we have an opportunity to actually cure you. If it's spread to other organs, what we can do is make sure that we decrease the rate of progression so that we increase your lifespan, your life expectancy.
You can live with prostate cancer.
You can live with prostate cancer.
Yeah.
We have treatment to extend your life. Obviously, without treatment, there's limited time that you will have. But now when we put treatment into the factor, then when we factor in treatment, we can extend your survival so that you can survive a little bit longer with your family. And remember that this is cancer is a burden on the family. And I'm glad you mentioned that family as well, because when you have a cancer, even if it's localized disease, when we have the operation, a lot of support is going to come from the wife, from the children to for the
Extended
recovery, from
family.
the extended family to recover. So it is a family a family issue, you know, from the time of screening. If you're that person who's caring and who's got a father, who's got a brother, who's in those ages, take that responsibility because you may not think it's your problem, but once they've got the disease, whether it's localized or metastasized, it will be your problem if the person is a close relation of yours. You will then be part and parcel of helping that person get over their disease. So, you know, start early, you know, and going back to the whole thing, what makes people hesitate to go and get health checks? It really isn't that bad. We are healthcare professions, as much as we have don't think we are that friendly. We're lovely people. It's quite a demanding field and emotionally. And so for people to be there every day, to come and help people, it means there's a lot of commitment there. You know, sometimes the numbers overwhelm people, and every now and then there's an episode.
The public sector it gets worse.
So it may be that person also was just having that particular moment. Otherwise, they're fine. So going back that, you know, come to a healthcare facility, and whether it be public or private, come and visit one of our healthcare centers and have the screening done, have the test done, have the treatment there, whatever is your, you know, your need at that particular time.
Once a year, you say?
Screening is once a year. And then let's help you, because we can actually help you. We can help you make sure that we pick it up in time. We can help you that when we do pick it up in time, we can treat you. We can help you that even if we pick it when it's already spread, we can decrease the rate of progression and improve your quality of life. You can only be able to contribute to the world when you're healthy. And some of the reasons why people are miserable is because their health is not taken
Something
care of.
is not quite
they are
right.
Not well. They've got some form of and I'm not talking not psychological.
True.
I'm talking about a physical.
There's a pain somewhere. There's a discomfort somewhere.
Yes, and it's impairing them functioning at their optimum.
Progressing in life and all of that.
Yes. So the only way you can be your best is when your body is functioning at its best. And the only way to, first of all, find that out, confirm and maintain your health is by visiting a healthcare facility. And it would be a missed opportunity to actually die from a disease, not knowing about it, when it actually can be treated. So don't miss out on those opportunities. This talk that you're having is sharing
one of
information.
that, yes.
Yeah, so don't miss out and overlook information, because you can't have information and not respond to it. It's unlike somebody who actually didn't know that there's benefit in screening. You know, you need to wait for the symptoms. Now that you have the information, use that information. And by the way, information is not only for the listener. You are listening on behalf of all the people that you're in contact with. So not everybody's gonna listen to this podcast, but you are representing the 10,000s that you maybe have contact with, that I may not have contact with, that you may not have contact with.
That's
so
what it is.
Share the information. Prostate cancer is particularly close to me because it affects my people. I'm a Black woman, so I need to help my Black people. That doesn't mean that my white counterparts are not close to me, but specifically because it's in my genes. It's a genetic problem. It's something that I need to be part of the solution. Let's screen for prostate cancer.
Let me make a commitment. I will arrange immediately after this for me to come and screen at your facility.
You're most welcome.
By you.
Yes, you're most welcome.
And I will take videos of myself walking in and walking out, and we'll include it in this video.
You're
so
most
I
welcome.
already have a commitment that before we publish this video, I must have gone to your facility.
I think that will be fabulous.
I have to do it.
Thank you for actually thinking about that.
Yes.
Because it will strengthen the whole thing that, you know what, it's not degrading to
do this.
Is it degrading?
And I will also reflect, it's not degrading, it's I don't have to. Like, I can just watch soccer. I don't have to do this. This is the anticipation, that moment. It's the about to bungee jump. It's that moment. Do I have to do this? No, not really. I'd rather go home. It's that moment. So the psychology of it in my head is not embarrassment. It's more, it's a cringe. It's do I have to?
remember, I've got 2 practices. I've got one in Midrand, and it's closer to here in Midstream.
Yes.
So you're welcome to come to that. And then the other practice is at the urology hospital. So you're most welcome.
I've been to the urology hospital in Pretoria.
So you're most welcome to come to any of them. It would be a pleasure for me to actually.
We'll set up an appointment now. It's fine. Well, last one. And I wrote this as a note. Tips for men on how to take better care of their reproductive organ. And I use men. You can throw women in there as we close. The answer will last as long as you speak.
The starting point is listen to your partner, because it's most of the urological conditions, even that I'm now removing from cancer, even the ones that are benign, the symptoms come so slowly that you don't realize that things are changing. So if you're...
Is that a common thing with
like
urology?
Even the urinary symptoms. I asked you now, like something like, do you urinate at night? Some people actually have to think, actually I do. And I've done it since when?
I do.
And they'll be like, and I'm like, so when did that start? And they actually don't remember when this thing
Is that
started.
a good or bad thing?
You shouldn't go more than once at night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you go more than once at night, it is an issue that can be solved.
I've been diagnosed right on this recording, but I drink a lot of fluids. That could be my problem.
Yeah, it could be the problem.
I know that I drink a lot of fluids at night.
You must measure actually how much fluids you drink, because people say a lot and it's half a cup or something. So I normally don't take a lot, even salt. They'll say, no, I don't drink much salt. It's not about a lot it must be quantified.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
but I know, when you're drinking and you're drinking again and you're drinking again. In the middle of the night, you go to the toilet. It's like, shit.
But once is fine.
That's why there's a phrase,
yeah, once is fine.
Once is fine.
Yes, once is fine. So more than once is something
it's an issue.
It's not necessarily an issue, but we need to investigate it.
Maybe I need to be investigated.
Yeah, you're going to have that visit that will...
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm thinking. Okay, there's an issue there.
So, and then going back to that thing. So,
yes.
So it really, it would be a missed opportunity to not actually take advantage of what is available, the health services that are there, and be patient when you're in government settings. Be patient, because you're coming for a screening. There are people who are sick coming for proper treatment. So the reproductive organs, taking care of it means taking care of your whole body, living a healthy lifestyle, watching what you eat, exercising, and I'm not talking hectic muscle kind of thing.
Lifting weights.
Walking, just mild exercises, just making sure that you're healthy. You've got a normal BMI, body mass index. And then the other things, you're talking sexual now specifically. So communicating with your partner, because sexual is a partnership, So speaking to your partner, getting to know yourself through your partner, because like I'm saying, it's more about the feedback than yourself. You will not know yourself if you don't get feedback from your partner. So communicate with your partner, find out, and be humble and vulnerable enough to get the feedback, and whether it's good or bad, so that if it's bad, we can actually go and consult, so that we can figure out, is there something happening, and is there something we can do about whatever is happening, So be vulnerable. Life is really not about the walls that we build around ourselves. No. It's about being vulnerable and being open to being,
being told
being
the
modified,
truth. Yes,
and being edited,
improved,
and having a better life, because you're stuck in this whole wall, and yet you are depriving yourself of the joy of fixing something, So be open to the discussions, sometimes painful, sometimes hurtful discussions you may end up with, because when you're vulnerable to your partner, it may not all be rosy.
No, it's true.
It's painful sometimes, but you have to open yourself to that, because things are you can only live life to the full when you're honest to yourself, and your partner. So life is about that. It's about stretching yourself, and in that stretching, you discover yourself, and then it's beautiful. It's beautiful. My Dr. Mashoka is my long term. She was the one who accepted me for that interview.
Okay. Yes, in Pretoria. Yes.
Oh yeah. And she always says that we're in the job of quality of life. We're improving people's quality of life, whether it be sexual health, or whether it be that they've got cancer. And my other mentor is in private, and he says that when a urological patient walks through your door, it's either they're scared because they're scared that maybe they've got some cancer or something's going wrong, or they are embarrassed. And embarrassed is because most of the conditions are about erectile sexual functioning, erectile dysfunctions and genitalia, and that's always embarrassing. So we are dealing with those people, scared patients or embarrassed. Yeah.
Make their lives easy in that moment.
And you know what? To be honest, there's nothing to be scared of.
That's
embarrassment. We can't do much about you being embarrassed about your stuff, but really, there's literally nothing to be scared of. Come, let's help you overcome your fear, and let's help you, release you from your embarrassment, because we can solve whatever is embarrassing you. You know.
Let's go back to the beginning for 1 second. When you discovered there's a lot of urological issues in community, and your mind changed to saying maybe there's value in doing more research. What has that done for your life at this point? That discovery. What has it done for your psychology in terms of your interest? And do you continue to feel like maybe we should go back to the roots, to the bottom, to where those issues were found when you started?
I've realized that for you to actually contribute to a medical field in my setting, you need to understand it deeply, you know. And there is value in GPs, but my value that I bring is that I know for sure that I'm not supposed to understand it superficially, urological conditions. I know for sure that I'm supposed to intricately understand it so that I can help the numerous urological conditions that are out there that I was exposed to, that I wasn't aware of. The other thing that came to my realization is that urology is not giving the focus that it needs to be given in medical training. And that's why I love training students, because I see it as an opportunity for me to actually infuse them with urological knowledge that I may not have taken seriously. I'm sure they were wonderful lecturers, but I'm actively and consciously and intently going, I enjoy lecturing the students, because I don't take it for granted that this may be one of a few opportunities that they may have, and patients will come in front of them and present to them with urological conditions, and they may not have enough exposure. So whatever lecture I give them, I see it as important. So those are the important things that I needed to understand urology intensely, and I'm glad I went through that journey. And also, urology is not given the focus that it needs to be, because there is a lot of urological conditions out there for sure. Whether I'd go back there, I think my going back is what I do when I train the GPs, because I would like to teach or to share knowledge that I went out seeking, because I didn't have that knowledge. So I go and I do talks for GPs about urological conditions, and at their level, the little that they can do in the meantime while they book in the patient for urologist, what can be done? Because essentially that's where my journey started. What can I do while this patient is waiting for me to refer them to a urologist? So I do talks with the GPs, and that's how I go back to where I came from, by accessing the GPs and giving them the knowledge that I was looking for when I started this journey of urology.
Are you a referral urology? Is it a referral only medical care, or can we go straight?
In public, remember our public health sector is very structured. So urology is a specialist field, like obs and gynae, like general surgery, like ENT, like plastic surgery, etc., etc. So you can't just walk to a plastic surgeon and say, "Listen, I want
to fix my nose."
Yes, You have to first be seen by a GP who will say, "Listen, there's this gentleman who's got this and this and this wrong, and they would like this, and I'm unable to assist them with that. Can you help them?" Similarly with urology as well. If you've got a UTI, the GP is well capable to treat you for that. But if it's recurrent and if it's a complex UTI, then it's outside their scope as a general practitioner. They then have to refer you to the urologist, who can investigate further. Why is this patient getting recurrent infection, and why is this patient got a complex UTI? So it is a referral system. That's in the public sector. In the private sector, yes, it's not as structured as private, because you can simply go and make a booking with your urologist.
Like I just did.
Yes, exactly. You're welcome. You're going to come and we're going to do that. But some medical aids actually would like you to actually first see a GP and have an authorization to be seen by a urologist. So that's the full spectrum. You can certainly access your urologist in private, find cash, or if you use your medical aid, some medical aids allow you to do that, especially if you've got a valid reason, or they may request that you be seen by a GP and get an authorization to be seen by a urologist.
In my world, you're a rock star.
Is it?
Absolutely. We are blessed to have you.
Oh, thank you.
We truly are. What you've shared with us today is worth hundreds of thousands of rands. And we are all getting it for free.
For sure.
Yes, you are an absolute rock star. One advantage I have in my life, and I'm blessed for this, I'm able to speak to people with expertise like yours. And I learned so much. We had on that very chair, the last person to sit there was Imtiaz Suleiman, Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman, Gift of the Giver. So the very last person to sit on that chair. And he shared with us his life experiences and the solutions that he solved. And you walk out of that conversation a changed person. I am changed from him. I'll tell you off air the things that have changed about me from that conversation. And it's the same here. You left me with a huge impression of a lot of things, of the makeup of the South African medical system, the makeup of the urology as a field. I now have a window into it. I feel like I'm looking out and I'm saying, wow, there's so much there. And it's interesting, it's fascinating, and I hope it encourages some young person to want to do it. And go into the same career from Kososhanguve, Kokarankua, Kumlazi. I'm hoping some kid will say, I want to study that more. And I want to change the world in that way. And this opportunity for me, and I say to you, you are a blessing and I appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Gosh, thank you.
Yes, you guys leave us with such information. And I know some of the comments we get, people say, and this is free? Absolutely, it is. I can just watch it. All I have to do is just have a data. Yes, so just have data and watch it. And that's the beauty of these sessions. And I remember somebody asking me, we enjoy your celebrity podcast. Like, my favorites are the ones when I speak to experts, people who spend their lives trying to understand the world. For me, because that's what you're doing. You're trying to understand this body part, and you spend your life doing that. And if we don't take advantage of that knowledge as Botaki in South Africa, to know and remember that we have people like yourselves. One, we can visit you at your workplace and be treated by you, but also we can be given the knowledge you have. So you get our boss.
Sure. Can I thank you. Can I tell you now, when you're talking about this, what my lifelong prayer is? I pray that I get to know the human body the way God made it.
Wow.
Because you spoke now how the human body is so intricate and we're still trying to discover it. So my prayer is to understand it the way the Creator made it.
That is a many lifetime exercise.
That is my prayer.
But you will continue.
That's me holding on to God and saying, give me this.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll bring it. Shortcut. It'll come in. It'll come in a dream. Because the work that went into understanding urology.
Now.
And imagine the work that comes with everything else. And what I like about your statement is that, sure, the road is so long, and yet we walk around with these bodies every day, and yet we don't know much.
There's still a lot to learn.
How much do you think we know? And I know I'm asking a weird question. If we had to give a percentage, how much do you think we know? Are we at the beginning, in the middle?
How much we don't know.
That's the challenge. That's why the question is wrong, maybe.
Yeah, I don't even know how much we don't know. When we discover new things, I'm like,
whoa.
Genetics is another different thing on its own.
Which we are only grappling with.
Yeah. And so yes. But we were created. So the person, the being that created us had all of these
ideas
while they were creating us. So the knowledge is there somewhere.
Obviously. You'll find it maybe in some cave. Maybe that's why they build the pyramids. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Okay.
Sure. It's a Dr. Vi, if somebody call you that. What kind of
Vi, Vio, or V? Viola. Or Viola.
Amazing.
Yeah.
They say people who carry multiple names also carry multiple personalities.
Yeah.
So I wonder about...
You know who I regard myself as?
Tell me.
I regard myself as Dr. Synergy.
Why
You
is
know, the
that?
definition of synergy is our contribution together is more than the sum of our individual contribution. So I am one that is able to bring a lot of skill and people together so that we can achieve more than if we're working individually. So that is something that I'm passionate about. And like I mentioned to you, remember I said to you that I know that's how I'm going to contribute public, and that's going to need a lot of me harnessing that Dr. Synergy of mine.
AKA Dr. Synergist, Dr. Viola Morolo. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
And thanks to Ntate Gogai for driving you here.
Okay, excellent.
We appreciate it.
Oh my goodness,
Wow.
that was lovely.
King David Studio Podcast.
This is the prostate, right? And you coming for screening for the prostate. So I have to ask about the urinary symptoms because the bladder may be affected, and the GIT, which is the anal part. Okay. So when you urinate, do you have a weak stream or a strong stream?
Middle. Not too strong.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then when you urinate, does the urine stop, or you urinate until you finish?
Continuously, but then there's the last few drips at the end.
Okay, excellent. And that's normal, by the way. And then when you start the urine, do you need to push or do you relax?
Relax and it just flows.
Okay, excellent. Blood in the urine?
No.
Not. Okay, and then when you finish urinating, does it feel like your bladder is empty?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And then you don't feel pain when you urinate or discomfort. Okay, excellent. Now we have to go to the other side, erectile problems. Do you have any erectile problems that you're aware of?
No.
Okay, excellent. So we're going to start at the beginning. Smoking, drinking?
No.
None of them. Oh, well done. And there's no family history of prostate cancer, eh?
None that I know, but I don't have a lot of men in my life, so I wouldn't have reference. My dad passed away when I was a kid, when I was 3, so.
Okay.
And the rest of the men were just very far away from my life, so I wouldn't know. And then the black culture, I don't think we speak of it much.
Yeah.
We just say wala.
And that's, remember I said to you, that's why I actually go to families when they actually diagnose.
Yeah.
Breast cancer?
No, none that I know.
Okay.
We're about to do the do.
Yeah, let's do the do.
Oh no.
Most people think the examination is the important part, but to be honest, the history
Is the
leads
important
to the examination.
Oh no, I'm scared.
So that's your prostate over there. It's also a nice way to check if the prostate is so there's prostate. We want the pattern to be like this, which is similar to what yours is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not high enough, maybe.
Yeah, we want not high enough, maybe, because of that. For men, we wanted about 15 mils per second. So when we have 150 mils, we can then have a proper assessment to see is the peak flow still at that level. When you come again next day, when you review the ultrasound, you repeat this and you just have a lot of water. Cool. Okay. Because it's not that bad.
No. Not at all, actually. It was not as bad as I thought. I thought go do more stuff. That's what I thought.
Nah.
Nothing like that. Actually, yeah, it's a little more humane.
It's fine. It's not bad at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you again. I appreciate
Thanks for
it.
trusting me.
King David Studio Podcast.